Betsy, are we streaming? Okay. I will call the town public hearing Thursday, July 17th, 2025 to order at 7 p.m. There are two ordinances provided here. Proposed revision to the expense reimbursement for certain emergency services, volunteer ordinances, and proposed open burning ordinance. Can we have the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, for liberty and justice for all. I don't know if we want to take these together. I think what I'll do is I will first ask for.
Is your mic on?
My mic is on.
It needs to be a little closer, maybe?
How's that?
Thank you.
There you go. Okay, sorry. So I think, can we take the, those people who are for or against or like to speak about the proposed revision to the expense reimbursement for certain emergency services volunteers ordinance? Would they like to speak on that ordinance? This is about the proposed revision to the expense reimbursement for certain emergency services volunteers ordinances. Would anybody like to speak about that? This is really housekeeping on the for the emergency services. I'll call it once. Anybody like to speak on that? I'll call it twice. I feel like an auctioneer. Okay, we'll move on from that. Next up is the proposed open burning ordinance. If anybody would like to speak in regard to the open burning ordinance that is proposed, please come up and speak to the mic. Joe, you look like you'd like to come up.
Good evening. Hi, Joe Ruggiero, 245 Skyview Drive. I wanted to share my thoughts concerning the new Article 5 open burning ordinance that is being considered this evening. On the whole, I am in agreement with the definitions, outline, and content that have been presented in this ordinance, but I do have a few concerns. First, compliments to our current Fire Marshal, Derek Guertin, for trying to clean up some open ends concerning the current open burning ordinance and difficulties that have resulted from the prior implementation, and to make it to be more in line with regulations created by similar towns and DEP. Also, Mr. Guertin's memo from 7/10/25 outlining his talking points makes logical sense in terms of separating recreational campfires from open burning of brush, etc., that have resulted in complaints and reports of fire and smoke by residents. However, I think that allowing people who have not created a problem in the past to continue operating in a safe manner, as they have, should be considered. The separation of burning types makes sense, but my only difficulty with the ordinance is the 3-foot campfire dimension. With that being said, I consider the size of the permitted campfires as described in the new ordinance as too small, and that a dimension larger than 3 feet be considered. All other aspects of the newer campfire provision look to be acceptable and reasonable except for this. Personally, I have a campfire burn fire pit that has been in place for 25 years that measures 5 feet 2 inches in diameter. It's circular. Please, I have photos if you're curious. I've never had a problem with my campfires creating a nuisance or disturbance for any of my neighbors, my home, my lawn, the fire department, or any other item located nearby. In my case, I comply with the other regulations for campfires concerning distances, dimensions, and combustible content. I keep a hose by, too, just in case. If this dimension becomes non-negotiable, a possible alternative could be that a 3-foot diameter campfire measurement, if it's enacted, then I urge that some form of grandfathering provision be added to burn areas and fire pits that exceed the dimension that already exist. Finally, while I have no concerns about our current fire marshal and his flexibility concerning how things are done, you have to remember that ordinances can have a very long life that transcend administrations and fire personnel. Creating a very stringent regulation for campfires this tiny could result in some future overly zealous fire marshal clamping down in a far stricter fashion, which might not be appreciated by residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Is there anybody else that would like to speak on the proposed open burning ordinance?
Emily Gray, 836 Jeremy Swamp Road. Just wanted to thank everyone for the time to speak tonight. I'm here as a concerned homeowner who is deeply affected by the proposed changes to the open burning ordinance, specifically the restrictions limiting brush to 3 inches in diameter and burn piles to just 3 feet wide. While I understand and support efforts to promote safety, I believe these limits are overly restrictive and will make it far more difficult for property owners to maintain and respectably clear their land. A 3-inch diameter piece of brush is not substantial. Many routine yard cleanups result in limbs larger than that fall naturally during storms or seasonal changes. Limiting the size of brush and burn piles in this way means many residents will be forced to haul debris off-site, which can be both costly and environmentally unfriendly, especially when compared to the controlled seasonal burning many of us already do safely. I'd respectfully ask whether this ordinance is in response to any specific incidents or data showing that previous burning practices have led to uncontrolled fires or posed a threat to public safety in our town. If such incidents have not occurred, then this ordinance may be a solution in search of a problem. I urge the town to strike a better balance, one that still prioritizes safety without unnecessarily burdening responsible homeowners. Perhaps a better approach would be clearer guidelines and enforcement for unsafe burning rather than imposing blanket restrictions that affect everyone. Thank you for your consideration.
Okay, is there anyone else that would like to speak on the proposed open burning ordinance?
Hi, good evening. Shanna Bertram, 295 Weston Hook Terrace. I just have a little bit of show and tell. We have a above-ground steel bowl recreational burn. I can't call it a pit, it's a bowl. I find that the ordinance is restrictive in the 3-inch diameter rule because, and pardon me, this is a 3-inch diameter log. It's about 15 inches long. According to the way the ordinance is written, I can burn that, but I can't burn this small piece of firewood, which is about 4.5 inches in diameter. Recreational burns are separate from on-the-ground campfires and so forth. Thank you. And I understand the need for watching out for fires that can get out of control. I mean, Lord knows, last summer we had a very long drought season, and it was definitely at any stray spark we would have had just horrible fires. But in places where people have recreational burn pits, campfires, whatever, on their properties, restricting the size, and also, you know, if you have a spark screen, you're going to be even more cautious, I would think. But I think it needs to be looked at. It is restrictive, and I have a concern there. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to speak on the proposed open burning ordinance?
Good evening, Bob Harrison, 507 Jeremy Swamp Road. I also have concerns about this proposed language. I know of many people that have fire pits that are much larger than 3 foot in diameter. Some people have spent a lot of money on them. if there's no grandfathering, I think that's not really fair to the residents. I myself have a much larger than 3-foot diameter, have had numerous bonfires in the evening, have never had any complaints that I'm aware of. No one's ever approached me, no fire marshals, no fire department, no police, so I assume everything was okay. I think some people are gonna read the language and say, well, we're not really restricting it. You could still have a recreational fire, you just have to apply and get the permit. But I think if you follow the language through, they're gonna say, yep, you can get a permit, you can have a recreational fire, but then it has to be between the hours of 10 a.m. and 5 p.m. So that means there's gonna be no evening picnic fires along those rules. So that's my concern. And I just wanna, and I'm pretty sure I'm clear on this, but that there's a distinction between these recreational fires and agricultural fires, because there's 2 separate permits that have to be filed. And sorry for the feedback. So anyways, I just wanted to make sure that, I'm not mistaken there, and that there is 2 separate processes, because for agriculture, it's a whole nother ballgame, having a farm. We're still cleaning up, believe it or not, from the tornado, and let alone the flood. And there is regulations contained within DEEP's open burn policies for agriculture that puts the diameter of the material much larger than 3 inches. As a matter of fact, they even say that there's times when whole trees, stumps, are recommended to be burned to get rid of that. And I just want to make sure that we're not going to blend the two. Thank you for your time.
Okay. Would anyone else like to speak on the proposed open burning ordinance? Would anybody else like to speak on the open burning ordinance? Okay. Derek, are you on the line right now? Oh. Would you like to speak, please? Betsy, if you can check if Derek. Okay.
Cindy Harrison, Jeremy Swamp Road. I'd like to also make a suggestion. As we've said, we are still cleaning from the tornado, we're cleaning from the flood, we're clearing invasives. And you can talk to any master gardener. The best way to get rid of them is to burn them. Otherwise, you're spreading it all around. I also think, in all fairness to us, we get our equipment, all that we're required to do to make sure we burn safely. And we read, oh, today the fire is low, the wind speed is correct, blah, blah, and we start getting ready to burn, only to call and to find out you can't burn today. And I think, in all fairness, to add to this, people need time to get all of it together, and I think it's only fair to request that the fire marshal let people know earlier in the day so that they can be ready to burn at the appropriate times, and not waste time thinking that they're getting ready to burn and then be told they can't. In our case, it can take an hour to an hour and a half to get all the equipment and stuff out there. So that's just my request from things that we've dealt with. Thank you.
John Gray, Jeremy Swamp Road. There has not been one recorded incident in town where a permitted brush burn has caused property loss or casualty. So the framework or the assumption that this town ordinance as a safety measure is just false on its face. Forcing homeowners to utilize a dump for brush will result in homeowners paying more fees to the dump. Homeowners unable to transport their brush to the dump will be forced to buy or rent wood chippers, resulting in increased noise pollution. This ordinance, as is proposed, will be yet another tax increase for the residents of Southbury that have in recent memory shared way too many in the past 5 or 6 years. Thank you.
Is Derek on the line, our fire marshal?
Hi, Mr. Manville, Derek Burton, Fire Marshal. Can everyone hear me okay?
Barely. Can you speak up a little bit? Betsy's
Yeah, I
trying to
can.
work on that.
Yeah, I had to switch devices here. Can you guys hear me okay now?
Not really.
I think it may be on your end. I was on my computer before and I'm on my phone now. Is it similar results?
Hang on. Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Derek, can you, you did send a change in recommendation, but also, can you address the agricultural burning aspect
Yeah,
of?
so I think what's happening is recreational burning is getting confused with the open burning of brush, which is what this ordinance is really trying to address. The recreational burning and the open burning are two very separate things. So open burning of brush is regulated by DEEP. Those regulations come from DEEP, the 3-inch in diameter brush, the times you could burn, the air quality conditions that are required for burning, the fire danger that's required for burning. Those are already set in place by DEEP. And that's enforced already currently. So it's not changing the open burning permitting or regulations at all. What this does is it defines recreational campfires to hopefully avoid the fire department from getting called to a smoke in the area complaint, the fire department responding to a smoke in the area complaint, and then extinguishing someone's recreational campfire when it's misinterpreted as open burning. So it defines the recreational campfire portion to protect the recreational campfire.
They still can't hear in the back, really.
The 3-inch in diameter for open burning of brush, as I mentioned earlier, is enforced through DEEP, and those regulations are not changed. That's a copy right out of DEEP's regulations.
So what I'm hearing is this does not change the regulations of DEEP's open burning and including agricultural burning, correct?
Correct. This is not more restrictive than anything DEEP has in place for open burning, whether it's open burning of brush on residential property, whether it's an agricultural permit for open burning, a permit for invasive species. All those permits are protected by DEEP, and that's the model that the town follows when it comes to open burning. That does not change at all.
So this proposed ordinance is addressing the recreational aspect, the fire pits, if you will, that homeowners have. Is that correct?
That is absolutely correct. So this defines the recreational side, which really helps protect the recreational campfires from getting extinguished under the misunderstanding that it is an open burn. Because right now the state currently doesn't define recreational campfires. They only define open burning.
Okay. All right. Does the board understand what the fire marshal is discussing there?
Derek, if you could, one of the questions that came up tonight that I think was valid. So in a world where I'm at home in my recreational fire pit, and I have a branch that is 4.5 inches in diameter, under this ordinance, can I burn that?
If you are having a recreational campfire, there is no dimension in the size wood that you can burn.
Excellent.
The size diameter restriction only comes when it's open burning of brush.
Got it. The answer was, if it's a recreational burn, I can burn, there is no upper limit of width. So if you have a 6-inch, log, or a 3.5-inch log, or a 9-inch log, all are okay.
And that 3-inch diameter restriction for open burning is a regulation set forth by DEEP.
And just to follow up what was said there, so the open burn, the 3-inch width for not the fire pits is a DEEP regulation,
Which only applies to open burning of brush.
which only applies to open burning brush. Thank you, Derek.
Yeah, thank you.
Ann?
Derek, my question to you is, Why was the ordinance changed? Was there an incident that happened or numerous incidents that caused the fire department, your office, to change this ordinance?
So early on, I recognized that there was no ordinance in place. This is actually a new ordinance. We followed the open burning procedures through DEEP. It wasn't reflected through our ordinance, and this also addresses the recreational campfires as well. We also have, believe it or not, we have repeat offenders for not open burning, excuse me, for recreational campfires that come out, and whether they're burning inappropriate materials, or we have someone burning open burning that would be defined as open burning or brush without permits. So this would also put in place a process to issue citations through this ordinance violation as well.
And one last question, Derek. There's some people that made comments regarding their existing fire pits. They've spent money on those fire pits. They're larger than the 3 feet that is suggested in this ordinance. Are there any plans maybe to change it so it's grandfathered?
So grandfathering is tough because then you always come into the conversation of, well, I had this at this date and it's hard to prove. And really my intent with this is to get away from the ambiguity. I want to define recreational campfires so we can get them away from open burning and protect them. I also want to make it easy for everyone to understand what they need to do to be safe. As far as if someone has a fire pit that's over the size restriction, I could tell you no one's going to come out. Well, I can't promise that forever. I could promise you I will never come out with a tape measure and say, oh, you're 3 feet 1 inches. As with anything any public official does, there's always discretion. And if we come out and it's safe and it's a little bit over the size limit, but it's safe, you have a water source, you're burning appropriate materials, it's not going to be an issue. If we come out and there's an issue and it's over the size limit, then there may be a further issue. The biggest hurdle we have when it comes to defining the size is there needs to be a clear line between a recreational campfire and a open burning of brush. As mentioned earlier, open burning is usually a larger pit. It's often done in a field. It's often done in someone's yard. It's a season's worth of brush, and that's usually a large pile. So what happens is the fire department will respond out to someone that's open burning that has a large pile, and they'll say, oh, I'm just having a campfire, when really it's open burning of brush. If you have a recreational campfire, you could do that when the fire danger is high. But if you're clearly open burning brush that you've been saving for a year's worth of time, but you're going to say it's a recreational fire, we're going to have an issue. And it usually gets extinguished anyway, but this really just defines those two separate things. DEEP already defines open burning of brush, and this defines the recreational burn to further separate that definition. So we have a clear line and say, hey, this is definitely a recreational campfire. Enjoy your evening, have fun with your family, be safe. But then we could also say, no, this is definitely open burning or brush. You need a permit. Please follow the process.
So what I'm hearing, I think, Derek, what you're saying is that there have been offenders who have been saying that they are doing a recreational burning, and it's, like in your opinion, it's not a recreational burning, or the fire department is asked to have a fire put out because it's not defined as a recreational pit. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah, it's happened in both instances, whether it's been a recreational campfire and been interpreted as open burning of brush, or if it's been open burning of brush and the homeowner tried to claim it was a recreational campfire. And honestly, sometimes it's honest mistakes. Sometimes I always take everything as an educational experience. I like to explain everything and why I do it and how I do it. And I really just want to avoid any of that confusion. So, and it's even reflected in the citation process here. The first violation is always just a conversation unless it becomes a criminal matter, which would rise it to a different occasion. But my intent through this is always have it be an educational process. Say, hey, look, this is our burning process. These are the DEEP regulations. This is how you apply for a permit. In the future, if you need to apply for a permit, please feel free. This is the way. And if it doesn't apply, hey, these are the recreational burning ordinance, or follow the burning rules for recreational burning, and you don't need a burning permit.
So we don't have a definition of recreational burning, which is not clear for the citizens, but would define it by this ordinance.
Correct. The definition in place would be the defining or definition for that. It's repetitive. DEEP does not define recreational burning. They don't define campfires. They only define open burning.
Okay, and this, and you know, I did speak to you because I do have a farm, and we discussed the fact that I do have a number of piles of brush that have to be burned. I also need to burn invasives and brush that we have. I mean, you can't spread them out, there's no way. You assured me that that does not affect the agricultural burning aspect of, that farms have to use in order to do it. That's regulated under deep, right?
Correct. All those deep open burning permits would be protected within this ordinance. It doesn't change any of the deep open burning regulations, whether it's open burning on private property, agricultural burning for invasive species. Those all remain exactly the same. All the wording related to open burning is right off of DEEP's website.
Okay. Go ahead.
Sorry, Derek, one more question. I understand for the fire pits, the usage is an issue, and I'm not taking any issue with that. If we were to say change the ordinance to read 5 feet in diameter, would that put Southbury in peril?
No, it wouldn't. And so that discussion came up earlier today, and I believe the ordinance you have in front of you reflects 50 inches. Is
Oh,
that
I did
correct?
not see that one. So, but I think, okay, there it is. So, okay, so we're heading in the same direction. I, too, when reading it the first time, thought 36 inches might be a little restrictive. I've never measured mine, but I think it's bigger than 3 feet. And if, you know, I don't want to create a scenario where everyone's out there measuring, and as you said before, it's 6 inches over or not. So I think if we just start with a larger, probably more appropriate diameter, and 50 inches or 5 feet or whatever, you know, that math works out to be, I think we're in agreement that the townspeople will be safe if we up the diameter.
Yeah, no, I agree. And we had discussion about the size. The 3-foot diameter came from other towns around us that were using that as a common measurement. So that's just what stuck. And
In Southbury, we go bigger.
I like it the best. I also agree. I don't want to create something that becomes unenforceable or that creates tension. So I agree. I think the 50-inch would be a good compromise. And again, as with anything, there's always discretion. If it's 51 inches and it's not a problem, it's a safe fire condition, you're not creating a smoke nuisance, you have a water source, the fire department happens to come out for some reason, and it's not an issue, I'm sure they're going to use their discretion as well and say, hey, no issue tonight, have a good night, enjoy your night, and move on their way.
Got it, thank you.
And I think the problem with Joe Ruggiero's is they didn't have precise engineering on the job and the as-built built. He was an inch off of the 5 feet.
I have a question. Is it absolutely necessary that we define a specific size, or can we simply say that there's, you know, a safe boundary, something like that? I do worry, and I think that there is some validity to concerns that people have invested in their properties. I don't want this to be a situation where 15, 20 years down the road from now, folks are running into a different culture of kind of cracking the whip on this. What is there a way that we can? I mean, I'm not in support of a specific inch limit. You know, I've got a rock formation in my yard that's not even anything fancy. They're just a lot of rocks that got put in a circle, but they've been used for many, many years. I don't want people to run into a problem, and I think we've heard that tonight, where, you know, I think it should be about the safety, not about the size, right? I think somebody could have a recreational fire that is quite small and they don't know how to manage it and it gets out of control, or you could have somebody who has something that's very large but they know how to manage it. I'm really hesitant to put a specific size on it, and I think it should be more about it being controlled and not a specific inch diameter.
Yeah, and I wanted to say, Selectman Betty also echoed the same sentiments. His outdoor pit is 40 inches wide. When I read this ordinance, I went out and measured my outdoor pit, and it's 55 inches wide. So I burn quite a bit outside at night, so I wouldn't want to see a restriction on the hours that it could be burned to. I have also burned agricultural out in the open, and I know how difficult it is to get that permit and the optimal conditions to burn with the wind and everything else. So the only thing I do oppose is the diameter for the recreational pit.
So, when it comes to defining the recreational campfire, that's really the only difference in defining it is the size. The material's the same for the most part. You guys are burning brush, essentially. If someone has a large pile of brush they're open burning in their yard, it's gonna be a substantial size. If we don't restrict the recreational campfire, we're gonna run into everyone saying, oh no, this is a recreational campfire, but it's a 10-foot pile of brush from a year. This is really to get away from the ambiguity of what a recreational campfire is and open burning of brush. I understand the concern and the hesitance that down the road someone may use less discretion and be more strict, but that's when you need to trust your officials and the volunteers you have that respond and recognize these situations and say, oh no, this is safe, properly use their discretion and not escalate something. Or respond and say, hey, this isn't safe, these are the issues, and then escalate the situation appropriately.
Okay. Well, stay tuned, because we'll get into the meeting itself for discussion. I don't know, so just stay on, if you could stay available, Derek?
Yep, I'll be on.
Okay. I'll call it one more time. Would anybody like to speak about the open burning ordinance?
I'm Bill McAllister, 410 Main Street North. It sounds to me like we need a definition between a campfire, a bonfire, and agricultural burn. You know, in my opinion, campfire is a little campfire like you have over at the state park. A bonfire you have when you have a party. You might have 3 or 4 pallets piled up and you torch them off. And an agricultural burn is a big pile of brush with maybe more than a 4-inch piece in it to burn. You know, clean the fence line, you need. So it sounds like we need a definition between what's a campfire and what's an open burn. Thank you. Richard Santo, I live on,
Rick, is that green light on?
oh, I gotta push the button. Richard Santo, 159 Bagley Road. I think the recreational campfire aspect has to be defined as someone there watching it, and not even if you do a larger pit, but then to leave the fire unattended, to me, then that's not recreational. Nobody's there. Where's the recreational aspect of it? It's kind of and I've run into that numerous times on my street. And I think that should be mandated with any recreational burn. That's all.
Okay. Any other latecomers to want to speak to the proposed burning ordinance? I'll call it a second time. Anybody like to speak at the public hearing about the open burning ordinance? Last call. Anybody like to speak? Okay, we will close the public hearing. Thank you for all those that spoke. We've already done the Pledge of Allegiance. I will call the Southbury Board of Selectmen regular meeting, July 17th, 2025, to order at 7:34 PM. You have your announcements and correspondence. Oh, public comment. Would anybody like to make a public comment? If you could limit it to 2 minutes, give your name.
Do I push it? Oh, come on.
Is the green light on?
Yes, it's on. I'm Diana Tezo, 194 North Georges Hill Road. I'm here to talk about the senior center. Since my visits to the past 2 board meetings, I've heard of no attempts to reach out to the public for opinions on including the senior center in the current pilot and possibly permanent 4-day workweek plan. You obviously do not want to know the public's opinion, or you would have sought it by now. This does not sound like a democratic procedure. When the plan was introduced, I spoke to the director of the senior center and was told she heard more positive comments than negative ones. I then prepared the petition because I was hearing a lot of complaints. I later learned from the first selectman's office that I was not allowed to bring a petition into the senior center. After being banned from the senior center, I decided to collect signatures from other seniors residing in Southbury. Though you consider my petition inaccurate because of its diversity, it clearly represents 71 seniors who are either members of the senior center or are concerned residents. Calling these signatures just a few voices is inaccurate. Seniors should not have to go to great lengths to attend late evening meetings, gather signatures, or write letters. If you cared, you would have made it more convenient to voice their opinions. Common sense will tell you that it is not in the best interest of senior citizens, the most vulnerable population, to stop services 1 day of the week. I retired from the Ridgefield Library, serving as director of children's programming. I know how valuable statistics are in determining the success of programs. The current senior center statistics show great growth in membership and attendance. These statistics do not support discontinuing services 1 day of the week. Where are the statistics to support the extended hours? Who else is opposed or in favor of the plan? And why was the center closed for the summer without statistics to support it? A plan to satisfy both the employees and the residents could be implemented if you think it's necessary to continue this plan. You were elected with the expectation that you would consider what is in the best interest of the public. The plan to close the senior center on Fridays as part of the 4-day work week is obviously not in the best interest of is obviously in the best interest of the staff, but definitely not in the best interest of the senior community.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Anybody else?
Good evening, my name is Barbara Meckler. I live at 28F Heritage Village. I wish to speak about the proposed 4-day work week and the pilot program. As you know, Heritage Village comprises nearly 1/3 of our town's population. Seniors contribute significantly to town taxes and pay for town infrastructure and education, even though they don't have children in the school system, and many may not even drive. The pilot 4-day workweek program, which began on June 1st, has had a significant impact on Heritage Village residents who use the town bus. When Heritage Village discontinued their own buses last year, many residents were unhappy, but comforted to know they could rely on the Southbury senior bus to get them to doctor's appointments and to do their shopping. Many seniors were unaware of the pilot program until after it had started on June 1st. To hear this program may become permanent is extremely unsettling. I had the chance to listen to the special meeting on June 25th, in which the Senior Center Director extolled the benefits of the 4-day workweek pilot and spoke about the importance of employee retention. She indicated the 4-day workweek would help employees have a better work-life balance. But aren't employees who work for our town more interested in making a difference to the citizens they serve than creating a better work-life balance for themselves? If we are having difficulty retaining quality employees, it seems to me there are other factors at play than a standard 5-day work week. As someone who spent 34 years working for various communities in Connecticut, I can assure the director that my motivation of entering a career of public service was not to achieve a better work-life balance, but to serve those within the town using my skills and experience to make a difference. I hope you will consider the needs of seniors in Southbury before making a decision to make the 4-day work week permanent. I feel you would be doing a tremendous disservice to a large and viable population of our town. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Francesca Sergi at 171 Lake Ridge Road, and I'm against closing the senior center on Friday. Many people rely on the center for exercise programs, sports, crafts, expert assistance, socialization, and transportation. There are some individuals that use it as a cooling center on these stifling hot days. It seems to me that the senior center could operate on 7 days a week. There was a time when it was open 5.5 days, then got changed to 5, then 4.5, and now 4? I would think with the constant increase in numbers of members that you would increase the hours, not decrease. At the end of this pilot program, I feel the community should have a vote on this very important public matter. It would not be fair to just listen to the staff who may prefer 3-day or 4-day weekends when there's a holiday on Monday, but to the funding taxpayers who actually use and depend on the senior center. Do the right thing as other towns have done. Treat the senior center as a separate and unique entity that it is, and keep it open Monday through Friday. They say the longevity of the blue zones are due to exercise and socialization, which is key to living a long and healthy life. Our wonderful senior center provides both, and you can't put a price tag on that. The staff is excellent, the programming is engaging, and the people who gather there provide cohesive, supportive community at a time of life when it is very much needed. If you must increase the fees or to hire a part-timer to cover the half a day, then so be it. But maybe the board members would consider and decide that the town's senior residents, which is 1/3 of the population, are worth the investment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi. Name is William Casaza, 137 Nod Hill Road. Is that okay?
Yeah, you're okay.
Yeah. You've heard plenty about people complaining whether the senior center is open 4.5 days or not. And I would like to offer a proposal to hopefully satisfy everybody. And that's going with a flex schedule. By flex schedule, I mean we would be open on the normal hours that we're used to for the last several years on half-day Fridays. And to do that, have one person work Fridays, basically to open the doors and turn the lights on. That's all they're really needed for on Fridays. And then that person, if you work out the schedule, you would wind up with one person working on Fridays, but the person that works Fridays would, the following week would have Friday and Monday off. So they'd have a 2-day weekend, normal, and then on a different schedule, a couple weeks later or the next week, they would have Friday and Monday off. Mondays would be covered by 2 people. Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday would be covered by the 3 people that work there normally. So Fridays, 1 person, Mondays, 2 people, and hopefully everybody would be happy. I know the seniors would be happy getting their half-day back on Fridays, and hopefully the staff there would be happy getting a 4-day weekend once a month or once every 3 weeks, whatever. Anyways, I worked it out. I have a little schedule made up by numbers, and it does work.
Thank you.
Laurel Casaza, 137 Nod Hill Road. I am a member of the Senior Center for going on 20 years now. I've been very gratified for all their services. I've seen it go from 7 to 5.5 to 4, to 5, 4.5, and now down to 4 days. I try to keep as active as I can. I've gone myself down from 5 days a week at the senior center. Because of osteoporosis, I've gone down to 3. When my third class, which was on Friday, got put into the 4 days. It got put on a day that I already had an active class, and I didn't want to give up any of them. So I have tried 2 of those classes on 1 day. And today I came from the doctor and I have an irritated disc, extreme pain. I couldn't, after last Tuesday, couldn't even stand. But it's getting better. But it has, I'm not saying that maybe that wouldn't have happened just plain going on a normal day. But it makes me hesitate now to think I can achieve 2 of these active classes in 1 day. I appreciate the way the staff did get all the classes in there, but it really wasn't to my benefit. I appreciate them being there, and I hope they open on Friday again.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Donna Smith, and I reside at 35 Lee Farm Drive. I moved here 10 years ago specifically for retirement and my future needs. You already have my letter dated June 10 stating my reasons for being against the senior center being closed on Fridays. For the record, I will say again that 3- and 4-day weekends can be especially hard without the senior center being open for socialization and activities. I can quickly become isolated and alone, which affects my physical and mental health. I have no family in the area at this point. I am against the loss of transportation assistance on Fridays. A longer transportation day for 4 days is not a good substitute for having 5 days. With fewer healthcare workers, appointments are harder to get, and that's 1 less day for seniors to work with. Expecting seniors to cram more appointments into 4 days and at the end of the day is a burden and not realistic, especially in the winter. Sometimes seniors need a day in between appointments to rest. In addition, I have known seniors who have resorted to calling an ambulance when they don't have another option. Another factor is that excuse me, with the medical field as it is, more seniors in town, including myself, may be forced to age in place. This may also increase the demand for transportation assistance. Seniors inevitably lose their driver's license along the way and cannot get out as they need to. This is an aging reality. I feel the transportation employee should be able to keep her full-time job and benefits to help us seniors with our transportation needs. I was dismayed to hear that her job was being sacrificed while the other employees are remaining full-time and receiving a 3-day weekend benefit. The transportation department should be available for a full 5 days. Demand will only increase. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to say thank you for being prompt to speak. I appreciate that.
Good evening, Sharon Word, 463B, Heritage Village. On behalf of the many seniors, other town residents, and workers who've waited for years for affordable housing, I'd like to thank the Board of Selectmen and Representative Jason Buxbaum for expediting the rewording of Special Act 1323, which has culminated in legislation being passed to allow the creation of more homes attainable to those with modest incomes in Southbury. Also, in the interest of getting many of these folks into affordable housing as soon as feasible, I contacted the Southbury Affordable Housing Alliance's consultant, David Berto, to see how long it would take Town Hall to fulfill the 2 steps the state requires before it cedes the 45 acres of Southbury Training School land to the town. I'm sure all of you want to move this project along quickly to not only help those physically and fiscally compromised people, but also to add money via property taxes to town coffers and to boost our local businesses via folks in affordable rentals having discretionary money they didn't have before to spend in Southbury. Knowing that the Board of Selectmen meets only twice a month, David Berto informed me that these 2 pre-ownership requirements should take only 6 to 7 months, which he broke down as follows. 1 month, prepare and issue RFPs, 1 month receive RFPs, 1 month evaluate RFPs and enter into contracts, 2 to 3 months to complete the survey, 3 to 4 months to complete the environmental impact statement, to be done in parallel with the survey. And as president of SAHA, I'd like to offer our volunteers time to help the BOS with RFPs, surveyor and environmental impact study contacts, clerical work, anything you might need to grease the path to land conveyance. And finally, what's vitally important to SAHA, that's our abbreviation, is not whom you select to develop this critical project, but just that it gets built in a reasonable time and with a sustainable, durable, attractive result. Thanks very
Thank you.
kindly for your time.
Catherine Smith, 831 Fish Rock Road. My comment is in response to Special Act 25-26, which allows the state of Connecticut to cede 45 acres of Southbury Training School land to the town in order to build housing. As you're aware, the land was previously allocated for senior affordable housing. However, money at the state level was only available for mixed generational housing, and therefore senior housing only could not be built. Affordable housing is housing priced at a level where no more than 30% of a person's income goes towards a mortgage or rent, insurance, and utilities. It's not Section 8 housing. There's currently a strong need for affordable housing in Southbury, as the board is aware, and you guys have graciously been working proactively towards getting us affordable housing. There's a 6 to 8 year wait for housing at Grace Meadows, and less than 2% of Southbury's housing stock is considered affordable. 39% of Southbury residents are living above the poverty level, but below the state's cost of living threshold. Therefore, affordable housing is something we need to take into serious consideration. Bringing in affordable housing will stimulate the local economy and will create stability for Southbury's seniors living on a fixed income, as well as for young families and persons that work in Southbury that cannot afford to live in our community. Due to the high demand for affordable housing, we kindly request that the town of Southbury complete the land survey and environmental impact study in a timely fashion and consider working with a developer that would allocate a significant portion, more than 30%, of the new construction to build affordably priced homes. And on a second note, as a certified professional fitness instructor, I also concur with the idea that the senior center should be open 5 days a week because it helps with the mental, spiritual, and physical well-being of our citizens. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Deborah Brody. I live at 218B Heritage Village, and I just want to speak in support of both having the full schedule for the senior center and also for having affordable housing in Southbury. Both of these issues touch me personally. I live with my mother, and she is disabled at this point, and we do have to go to many doctor's appointments, and not having transportation on one whole day of the week is a problem. Luckily, I can still drive, so you know, she is able to get to appointments if they're on Friday, but it definitely, I know of other neighbors who are, you know, dependent upon transportation, and so that's a very serious consideration. And then with regard to affordable housing, at this point, living with my mother, we are able to make our dwelling affordable for us, but as we all will, my mother will at some point be gone. And at that point, I will be forced to move from Southbury because I cannot by myself afford to live where I do. And if there is not affordable housing in Southbury, I will have to move. I don't think that moving when you're forced to move is moving. I think that's an eviction. So I would hope that as a community, we will come together and provide for all of us. People who have greater needs, let us provide for them, whether they are seniors or whether they are people with more, how shall I say it, ordinary incomes as opposed to wealth. and let us make Southbury a place which is good for everyone to live. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Heidi Kozakowski. I live at 50 Lake Ridge Road. I'm here to state my concerns about closing the senior center on Fridays once the pilot program has concluded. I hope in August, when you revisit this program, you will take into account that closing on Fridays is not in the best interest of the 30.2% senior Southbury senior community. We have a large senior population here, larger than surrounding towns. Under this pilot program, we have the fewest open hours compared with surrounding senior centers. Under the old hours, we were in line with the number of open hours at local senior centers. You should also be mindful that the weeks that have a Monday holiday mean the senior center will only be open 3 days, 28 hours. Employees getting paid 40 hours for working 28 hours is a bit rich in my eyes, but more importantly, seniors will not have access to a vibrant community resource for 4 consecutive days, Friday through Monday. Transportation for this segment of the population is also affected under this pilot program. For ride requests on Mondays and Tuesdays, a person now has to put their request in by 10 a.m. 5 days in advance. The Southbury Senior Services Strategic Plan, approved by the Commission on December 13th, 2023, does not state anything about reducing hours at the senior center. Quite the opposite is that the strategic plan states that the Commission will take the best course of action to address the needs of our growing senior population. Closing for a day and reducing hours is not favorable to the quality of life stated by the National Institute on Aging. They state physical, mental, and cognitive health are components that need to be addressed to maintain optimal health later in life. I hope you recognize the importance of mental health, socialization, fitness, and convenience of transportation in a thriving senior population. The senior population is a high percentage in this town and growing. It does not make sense to diminish this source in our community. When you revisit the pilot program in August, please consider what is beneficial for the 900 Senior Center members by electing to reopen the Southbury Senior Center on Fridays starting September 1st. Remember, Southbury Senior Center should go bigger. Thank you.
Anybody else like to speak?
Good evening. My name is Mark Lee. I live at 85 Amos White Road. I'm commenting on the revised Public Act, and I happen to be have participated in the Affordable Housing Subcommittee, and I can attest to Ms. Wert's longstanding interest in the matter. I would say that when we touched upon it, after having looked at lots of other potential ways, we suggested changing one word in the statute, removing the word elderly. That was the only change we suggested. Then it came to the board, and the board said, well, you know, at some point we should, you know, make this a bigger picture. And so the language was changed, which, okay. And then we get this back from Hartford, and it's got essentially an 80-30G project built into it. So I'm not saying I'm discouraged by it, but I think it's going to at least open up the possibilities moving away from a statute and a law that was clearly not working. So it's an opportunity. I hope we find a way to work with it, and I thank the board for having pushed it along as far as you have. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to speak at public comment?
Alan Mail, 39C, Heritage Village. I just want to add my voice to those who have already spoken about the need to keep the senior center open 5 days a week and to have the bus service available to accommodate them. The need for socialization is greater than ever. What kind of quality of life the seniors have if they can't socialize, if you have to go 3, 4, even 5 days in a row without getting a chance to meet with other people, It's a real concern. And it just seems that we ought to be working harder to meet the needs of our senior citizens. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to speak at public comment? Would anybody else like to speak at public comment? We do this 3 times, like it's like an auctioneer. So I give a, yes, we would happy to hear from you. Don't get up there too quickly. You almost won the bid.
Hi, my name is Chris Bizzuto. I live at 45 Greenwich Drive. I was chairman of the Senior Services Commission when we drafted the strategic plan. We went through that excruciatingly tedious process. It was the first strategic plan of the Senior Services Commission. I don't know, it was presented to the first selectman in January of 2024. I'm not sure if anyone in town or on the Board of Selectmen have seen it, but the gist of our strategic plan was to grow the senior center, not to diminish the senior center. We wanted to pull in more people. Our senior population is growing. We have more seniors that work. We wanted more, not to be sexist or anything, more men, because it was mostly women. We wanted to bring in more men, so to have activities that would attract the male seniors in town. I'm very much against restricting the hours of the senior center. I think we need to grow the senior center. I think we need to go back to having Sunday transportation to church that we used to have. I think diminishing the services is a big mistake. Thank you.
Thank you. So I get to start the process again. Is there anybody else who would like to speak at public comment? Is there anyone else who would like to speak at public comment? We're going to go for the third one, so if anybody jumps up. Would anybody else like to speak at public comment? Hearing none, we will close that portion of our meeting. We'll move on to announcements and correspondence in front of you. You have your reports from the staff. Up is the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Holly's made.
Second.
Made and seconded. Any discussion on the consent agenda? Hearing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Is anyone opposed? And it carries. Minutes of June 25th, 2025 special meeting. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes? Thank you. Ann? Tim, you want to second that? Thank you, sir. Any discussion on the minutes? Hearing none, all in favor of the minutes signify by saying aye. Aye. And is anyone opposed? And it carries. Bids and procurement. The resolution resolved that the Board of, we'll take the tennis courts, I'm sorry, tennis courts. Resolve the Board of Selectmen upon the recommendation of the Finance Director approve the bid received from RS Site and Sports of Oxford, Connecticut, utilizing the Equalis Group contract COG 2117A for rebuilding the tennis courts at Community Park in the amount of $325,800. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second. Second. Discussion on it? I just want to say this is to get our tennis courts opened. This is, we're going to FEMA and we're going to make these right post-tension. They're going to be the correct thing. This is actually a pretty good price. Yes, sir.
Just a couple questions. I remember at one point in time, we were trying to talk with the USTA. Did any of that ever?
They're yes.
That's part of this? Okay, perfect.
They're willing to contribute. I don't know exactly how much, but they're going to help us with it.
Excellent. And do you remember off the top of your head how many bids came in that we're choosing this one?
We're going on the bid contract that they have on the proposal. This is substantially lower than what even the region got for theirs.
Okay. Thank you.
Button? Sorry, Ann?
Isn't this the bid we submitted to FEMA, or the town submitted to FEMA?
Not, we don't submit this to FEMA, we submit, they evaluate the damage to what was there. So that was not exactly those tennis courts were not post-tension. They
Right.
were asphalt, and they would only rebuild them back to,
But in the summary, it did say they were
Yeah.
gonna be tension tennis courts now, the way that we're
they will be
building them.
post-tension,
Right.
properly,
Okay.
yeah, that's what we build now.
Okay.
Jeff, I didn't see this on the original agenda. When did this get added?
Tuesday?
I-
Tuesday.
Tuesday, yeah. All right, I'll call the vote on this. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that carries. Request for waiver for chip sealing. This is the chip sealing company that we've been using, and we have gone on the, we're going on the back of Watertown's bid process, and Seymour has been serving the town in this chip sealing process quite well for many years. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Can I have a second? Thank you, Holly. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Is anyone opposed? And that carries. Library switch and library wiring. This is kind of like the final thing we're trying to do to get get the rest of this library open. Do I have a motion to approve the bid? Have a second?
Second.
Made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Like I said, this is, we need to get the communications, get the IT stuff running. The bids were actually pretty good, a lot less than I thought they were going to be. So we're in pretty good shape. And this is a company that has done our, I'm very encouraged because they also did all our phone system without any issue, so pretty reputable. All right, I'll call the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Is anybody opposed? And that carries. Under the unfinished business, expense reimbursement for certain emergency services volunteers ordinances. Resolved that the Southbury Board of Selectmen hereby approves the attached revised expense reimbursement for certain emergency services volunteers ordinances. This is mostly housekeeping.
So moved.
Can I have a second? Second? Tim, second that one? Thank you. Thank you for moving it along. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? And it carries. The open burning ordinance, resolve the Southbury Board of Selectmen hereby approves the attached open burning ordinance. I'll entertain a motion to discuss.
I'd like to make a motion to amend the ordinance.
Why don't we make them on a procedurally, make a motion to approve?
Okay,
So we can
I'll
get
make
on
a
the-
motion to approve.
Can I have a second?
Under
Open for
discussion, I'd like to make a motion to amend. I would like, specific to the recreational fire, which is what we're trying to do here tonight, I would make a motion to amend this language that I think in the most recent version shows 50 inches. I would like to make that 60 inches, which is 5 feet, which I think is reasonable. I understand Selectman Sullivan's thought process, and I do totally get it. I think there has to be some kind of definition, though, because without a definition, as the fire marshal mentioned, it becomes anything. So could we be walking ourselves into an issue 20 years from now? Maybe. I hope there's smarter people than us on the board at that point. So, I think I'm willing to take that. So I would like to amend this ordinance that anywhere we reference, whether it be in the definitions here or throughout the ordinance, that the diameter of any recreational fire cannot exceed 60 inches.
There's a motion to amend. Can I have a second? Tim will second that. Any further discussion on that?
I would. I'd like some further discussion. So, when Derek was speaking, he said there was some people in the past that didn't do the right thing, whatever it might have been there when they lit a fire. should there somewhere in here be, someone had mentioned, it should be unattended? Should there be more rules in there to help people understand? When you want to go hunting, you have to take a hunting class. When you want to captain a boat, you have to take a boating class. Should there be something like a fire class that you take once in your lifetime? You understand the rules. If you break the rules, that's when you get fined.
I think I think starting with this ordinance, if there's a need, I think what I heard, is Derek still on? What I heard from Derek was, there's two issues. One is that there is technically no recreational burning recognized, which is the fire pit.
But we're defining the size of it.
There is no technical definition of a fire pit size.
Okay.
So I understand from Derek, and he'll correct me if I'm wrong, the purpose of this is to have the definition so that people could have a recreational pit without someone or the fire department showing up and say, you're burning, there's no recreational burning. And depending on that has happened, I guess, in the past. So this will make it clear that it's, 5 foot, it's recreational burning, and that they can do that. And I also think the second problem that he's experiencing is repeat offenders who are saying, this is just a big recreational burn. I'm here, I'm enjoying it, and you have no definition of recreational fire, so I get to do this. So I think that's what I heard. Derek, is that what the gist of this is?
Yeah, that's correct. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Barely.
So, I wish I had better audio here. I don't like doing this remotely. So yeah, two of the common issues we run into are people claiming, hey, this is just a recreational fire. When you are open burning brush, you're subject to doing that when the fire conditions are appropriate, when the air quality is appropriate, and when the weather's appropriate. So you could have a high fire danger day, and someone could have a recreational campfire. But by doing that, you're kind of superseding all those open burning regulations. So you could have someone that's obviously open burning on a high fire danger day and say, this is a recreational campfire, not an open burn. And there's no definition for that. And it becomes challenging to kind of mitigate that. The last thing I want to do is overstep my authority on someone's freedoms. And I also don't want it to get misunderstood by the fire department or any other agency as well. Say, hey, look, this is a recreational campfire. Today's a no burning day. You have to put your campfire out because it's open burning. So by defining those two separate things, we get away from both those situations.
So I think it gives actually the clarity of a recreational fire is what you're defining here.
Correct.
Okay.
I just want to comment. I understand it, and I think that I think there should be provisions for people to recreationally burn, and I think that's something that's part of our culture, and people enjoy doing that. I really struggle with putting a certain inch diameter on it, especially without some way. I know we can say, well, somebody can say that something's grandfathered. I really don't want to see a situation where somebody has done a landscaping investment only to find out that they're 5 inches over or 10 inches over or whatever it is, or it's oblong. I just don't feel like that's something that we should be doing to landowners. I respect their personal property and as they've designed it. I'd at least like to see some sort of grandfathering, whether or not, it's arguable if that existed in the past. I think it's the right thing to do that, if somebody's made an investment in landscaping, that we're not gonna come in and say, well, now you need to make it smaller. I struggle with that. I think we need to respect the rights of people's private property.
So there's also provisions for.
Go ahead, Derek.
Yeah, if you look in the definitions, there's provisions for grills, barbecue, outdoor fireplace. So those are exempted items. So let me pull up my definition. I have an older version here. Excuse me 1 second.
We can hear you better when you're doing that.
I was by the window.
Derek, the definition for grill bar, oop, you moved it. Yeah, you're moving it again. Where'd you go? That's all right. Any metal or masonry structure or pre-manufactured appliance used for the outdoor cooking or recreational fire. That's what we have in the definitions for grill, barbecue, outdoor fireplace, or approved appliance.
Correct. So if someone has a masonry fire pit that's 6 feet in diameter, or in this case, 6.5 feet, whatever that dimension is, that may be greater than the restricted dimension mentioned, it's going to be exempt from this ordinance. If you have a solo stove or whatever manufacturer stove that's larger than the restricted dimension, it's going to be exempted. It's designed for that purpose. So if someone were to have a masonry structure in their backyard, regardless of the size, assuming it's going to be safe and appropriate, it would be exempt from that restriction as well.
So, let's say something was like a stacked rock formation, for example. That doesn't qualify as masonry, correct?
Good attorney
So
can
that
make it.
I'd say. And that's really what I want to get away from is the ambiguity of all these definitions. I want to make it so I can protect recreational campfires, and I want to define that so it doesn't get confused for open burning, and it also can't be used as an excuse, honestly, for open burning. The last thing I want to do is stop recreational campfires. I think it's a valuable part of our society. I spoke to many organizations, the Boy Scouts, some of the other organizations that do this, and I support them fully for what they do for our youth. So I don't want it to be understood as me trying to restrict the recreational campfires. I really don't. I want everyone to enjoy their outdoors. I do it with my family. I think it's an important aspect. But there just needs to be some defining, honestly, measurement to separate the two different things.
So what I'm hearing is part of the problem is because there's no definition of a recreational burning, because there's no definition of size, then there is no such thing. What you're saying is there is no such thing as recreational burning.
Correct. Right now, someone could have a 3-foot recreational burn as the definition is presented. The fire department could show up, or any agency could show up and say, hey, today's not a burning day, you can't have an open burn, and order that fire extinguished.
So if you had a 3-foot fire pit and you were doing what we all do, we all have a fire pit. Depending on the agency at the time, they can say that you have to put it out, and I say, well, wait a minute, this is a recreational burning pit, and they say there is no such thing because there's no definition. It's considered open burning, and you don't meet the DEEP permit requirements. Is that what you're saying?
Correct. That is correct.
Okay.
Jeff? Derek, in this DEP statute, is there a size anywhere in that statute written? So does it go from recreational, because on Tuesday it was 30 inches and it's gone up to 60 inches now. Is DEP, if you're to get a permit, does it have a size requirement, size restriction?
DEP does not have a size restriction on the area that could be burned. They have a restriction on the items that could be burned. So nothing greater than 3 inches diameter for open burning on residential property. No stumps, things to that nature. No grass, no leaves.
So if the DEP doesn't have a restriction on the size, why should we put a restriction on our size? We say it's recreational burning. Why do we have to put a size on it?
So the definition for DEP is for open burning of brush, and that's usually a larger process. So that requires you to do it on
recreation.
Yeah.
So DEEP does not have a recreational fire definition either, Derek?
Correct. No, DEEP does not define recreational burning. They only define open burning.
So why are we putting a restriction on the size? Because if someone has a copper kettle that's 100 inches, or somebody has a tiny little campfire.
As
So
I understand
tiny-
it, Derek, and correct me if I'm wrong, the reason we want to create this for recreational fire is to actually give our residents more flexibility in what are truly recreational fires. If we don't have a definition, any fire then falls under the more restrictive open burn ordinance ordinances where now it's a 3-inch diameter, now there's certain days you can do it or not. So if we just had no restrictions and created no definition for recreational fire, we would in fact be encumbering our citizens more by not having this definition.
That is correct.
So we have to have a size in there. We can't keep it the way it is and let people at their own discretion build their fire.
If we don't put a size in there, there's
Right.
no other defining matrix.
And forgive me, so, you know, I mean, growing up, there were plenty of times that we would have a recreational bonfire with a couple pallets. A pallet is 48 inches.
So a pallet is, I hate to interrupt you, a pallet is a restricted item. You can't burn construction material in
Well, that's a great
recreational
point,
campfires
Derek.
or open burning.
You were breaking like 4 laws there, Holly.
I said growing up.
Let me just clarify something about, understanding a little bit about pallets. Some pallets that people get have, they have treatment in there that you really shouldn't burn because you really shouldn't breathe it in.
Understood. Oh, I learned something new today. I totally understand the intention, and I think, like I said, I think that we do want to allow for there to be a mechanism for somebody to say this is truly a recreational burn. I am staunchly behind private property rights, though, and I really struggle with putting inches on something. I just, I feel like that is like that's the one piece of this. And the only other thing that I can suggest was, which is what Joe Ruggiero had suggested, is that I hope we could at least put some comment that, that there's sort of some grandfathering for folks that have already created something. And like, I'm not even like talking about like me, mine's like a bunch of rocks. I'm talking about people that have like invested in something. And, you know, I don't want us to, I don't want to sit up here, and rarely do we ever sit up here and dictate what private landowners do on their own land. And I don't want to create a situation where we're doing that. I feel like you buy that land, you buy it all the way through, and I'm really struggling with this, the measurements, whether it's 36 inches or 100 inches. I think the very least that we need to do is recognize that people have already potentially made
But I think to
investments.
the point of if somebody has built something, masonry, it's covered under here.
But what if it's not masonry? Like,
Well, masonry.
Masonry, metal, any pre-manufactured appliance, there's language in there to cover that person who just dropped 15 grand on an outdoor patio.
And there's always discretion. Every official has discretion.
but
If
that's the piece I'm
someone-
concerned about. It's
And-
not you today. It's
No,
down
of
the road.
course, understand that.
Derek?
So let me give you another example. So Holly, I hate to put you on the spot. You have a fire pit that's however many inches.
I actually
Let's
don't
say
know.
a high fire danger day, you're having a recreational burn. Someone happens to call smoke in the area. An agency follows the smoke back to your property and says, hey, you're burning, today's a no fire day because open burning dictates you can't burn when it's 15-mile-an-hour winds and it's 20-mile-an-hour winds today. And they order that fire out. By defining a recreational campfire, you're exempt from those open burning regulations.
So you actually give the property owner more rights by creating this one ordinance?
Correct.
For recreational
I
fires at least, not for everything
I
else?
understand it restricts the size of the actual area they could burn, but it also empowers them to continue to burn under that recreational definition.
But I'm not looking for a method for, if it's an unsafe condition, that somebody then could say, I mean, I would think that the average respectful person in town would say, oh my goodness, you know, I'll put it out, I did not realize the winds were so high, whatever it is. I'm
It
struggling
also
with
comes
this
into
one.
play with air quality. So I'm not in Connecticut today. I'm sure it's probably sunny and maybe a nice calm day. If it's anywhere approaching 80, 90, 100 degrees, the air quality index usually precludes open burning for the day. If the air quality index is over 100, anywhere in the state, you cannot open burn.
So you, right now, should someone with a much let's say just a larger burn pit, without this ordinance, whether it's 8 feet in diameter with some boulders, or whether it's 3 feet in diameter with some cinder blocks, they cannot burn without this ordinance in place.
Correct. It would be considered an open burning of brush most likely in order to extinguish.
Okay, I understand where you're going with that. I just hate putting.
I have a question.
But you're not actually putting more restriction, you're actually giving the homeowners the right.
For recreational fires at least, you're taking more encumbrances off them.
Now, you were saying grandfathering. If you're the grandfather, what are the metrics, or who's gonna go out and check the fire pit? Yeah, I could build a 10-foot fire pit tomorrow, and if they grandfathered, or I could do it after the ordinance has been created and say, oh, no, that was there. I'm
But-
grandfathered.
But if it's built out of masonry, which
Could be-
at 10 feet, I mean, not just a hole,
Just an example.
It would
Okay.
be
Say it was
covered.
rocks, and I just put the rocks in a big ring. How are you gonna, what are the metrics so that, is Derek and every firefighter gonna go out and check and have a list in town hall of who has a bigger fire pit than 60 inches? It's not feasible. You can't do that. But
No,
why do we, if we
I
have a
think you can, I agree.
recreational ordinance for fire, why do we have to put a number on the size of it?
We just said that now, Ann, like 4 times. If we don't put a number on it, it's an
I
open.
didn't hear the 4 times.
It's
so.
an open burn. So that means every fire, 1 foot in diameter, 100 feet in diameter, is now governed by DEEP's rulings on fire. That's now nothing more than the 3-inch width of brush, wind speeds, air quality. All of those things now are enforced on a 1-foot fire. By DEEP, the state, not us.
So then make it 100 inches. Why are we making it 60 inches? Why did we make it on Tuesday 30 inches and now change to 60 inches?
Well, just like any ordinance, we have to find a balance. If we make
Yeah,
it
like-
100, someone's gonna say, can it be 110? Okay, we'll make it 110, then someone wants 140. 60, because it's 5 feet and it seemed like a reasonable number, became the number. If we want to make an amendment to change 60 to something else, that's what we get the big bucks to do. But I think there has to be some kind of number, because without a number, there's no definition. If there's no definition, everything's an open burn, and that comes with 1,000 definitions.
I understand, I do understand the point. Well, I'm not gonna rehash it. I understand the point, and I respect and appreciate it. I just wanna also make sure that we're respecting private property. How big is 100 inches? That's
Twice as big as 50.
Yeah.
So if 50's 5, I'm gonna say that's 10.
So what is this, like an 8-foot table? That's pretty good.
And again, I think,
That's a big fire, actually.
Derek, according to this ordinance, if it is a masonry-built structure,
Over 8 foot.
Yeah, so this is like.
if it's a masonry-built structure, it can still be used.
It's its own definition. That's
And I would
outside of
think-
recreational fire.
So why
My
can't the
concern
language
is
just say?
if we make this a 100-inch fire pit, that you could be calling this a recreational burn, because that now exempts them from the fire danger, the air quality, the wind speed, I have a little concern with that. I don't want someone having a recreational fire that's 100 inches on a windy day or high fire danger day. I understand everyone has a different opinion of what a recreational campfire looks like. Do we really want our families and our kids sitting around a 10-foot fire on a high fire danger day potentially?
Depends on your family.
No, and I don't think that's what, I mean, that's certainly not what I'm getting at. I think for me, if it's a high danger day, I would hope people would be respectful, but I realize that not everybody.
Not everybody
someone's-
is.
And I had picked 5 feet, because at least in my own head, that seemed like a common sense size.
And I agree with the 5 feet. I think that's a reasonable size. And then the other option is if someone wanted to have a fire that's 10 feet in diameter, they could apply for an open burning pit, or an open burning permit, and burn appropriate materials over that size limit. That's still an option. You could have an open burn pit with a burning permit that's 20 feet wide.
Can you do that in the evening?
Well,
That has to be between the hours of 10 and 5. You have to follow the regulations for open burning.
you really don't need people burning a 20-foot wide open burning after 5 o'clock at night when you.
To have hot dogs?
Yeah, you really need to get it out at night. Otherwise, people go to bed and there's a problem.
And these are all
Okay.
things we've seen. We've seen unattended fire spread. I've seen even open burning that's been left unattended and it spreads and causes fires. Unfortunately, these things happen.
And the problem is if we don't pass the ordinance, then there is no such thing as we're trying to create the ability, a right of the people to have a recreational burning permit.
Correct. If a size can't
Well,
be
not a
agreed upon-
permit. You wouldn't have to apply for a permit.
Correct, yeah. If a size and a definition can't be agreed upon, everything could be confused as a open burn and then is subject to those regulations.
Okay. So we have the amendment. I made and seconded. I will call the vote on the amendment. All in favor of increasing that to, is it 5 feet?
60 inches.
60 inches. Signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any nays?
I'm sorry, I'm still a nay. I want to get better language that
Okay.
I feel, I'm really sorry, guys.
And it passes. Now we'll take the ordinance itself, which again is to be able to create, to allow recreational burning so that people can have this up to 5 feet. I'll call the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And it carries. Okay. Charter revision. Joe, are you still here? I'll open it up for discussion. Joe, what's our, why don't you come up here, Joe, just so keep us straight. Keep us lowly politicians as straight as you possibly can. I like to bring a little humor into
Extra
these
points for
meetings.
everyone who's hung out for this whole thing, too, by the way.
Yeah. So my question is, timeline, where are we at?
So, at this point, it's in the Board of Selectmen's hands to either,
Are you on?
there's no mic.
Betsy, there's no
Yes, I'm
mic.
on now.
Lexi's packing up early.
So the Charter Revision Commission finished its work at the end of June and submitted its final draft to you folk, and you had a public hearing after that, if you recall, earlier in July. And now, my understanding is that you take those comments into consideration and then decide on your own if you would suggest to the Charter Revision Commission any modifications to the proposed final draft. So I think that's what you're undertaking tonight, I'm guessing here. If you choose to not make any modifications, it becomes final. If you choose to send it back to the Charter Revision Commission for suggested changes, then we would meet again pretty quickly in the next week or two or something like that. We have to figure out the precise time. And then either accept those changes or make modifications or reject them. Then I believe it goes back to the Board of Selectmen for the final word, and then it has to be formed into questions by, well, I think it's the latest is September 18th. That's when the town clerk must have questions. So there's also a legal review that needs to be occurring here. I'm hoping that our town attorney is already looking at that. Any case, so that's my understanding of the timeline. I put it out in the bottom of this document. Oh, maybe it's not this one. It's on the website where we had the proposed changes and then it had a timeline at the bottom.
Joe, I have a question for you. If the Board of Selectmen decided on something that they didn't want in the, of the options that we have here to discuss, can the Board of Selectmen take something out with having to go back to the charter revision?
The first
Or does it
step
have
is,
to go back to-
the first step is you would recommend changes to the Charter Revision Commission, who then gets another
crack at accepting or rejecting the modifications.
For clarification, that would be, need to be a motion and a discussion and a vote to make the recommendation of a change of the charter revision question.
That's my understanding.
Right. Procedurally, I want to make sure we
Yes.
don't, like I can't say I want that changed. and
No,
they-
no, it needs to
and
be a group, yes.
It
yeah.
has to be a vote.
Yes.
Okay.
And it needs to be timely because of the end date that's in mind here, so, anyway.
Okay.
Does that help?
So,
Yep.
yeah, just hang on, Joe.
All right, sure.
You're-
You've hung out this
Don't
long.
don't go out the door yet. Just, you got to keep us straight here,
fine, sure.
all right? That's good. I guess my suggestion would be that the selectmen email so for discussion, whatever you're concerned with, to bring it up.
Discussion in public.
Well, so that when we bring it to the board meeting and discuss it.
Do we have time for that?
Yeah.
It's a little tight, but
I would rather discuss it in person. I would.
Well, we would do it in purpose in public. But do you have a list of everything? I don't have everything in front of me.
I just have a couple questions, concerns that maybe the other selectmen or you, Jeff, have a concern with as well.
I think Ann and I, since we've been doing this for a year and a half, are a little more familiar with this, so I'm kind of in Ann's boat. I can speak to them all right now, and I don't expect anyone else to be able to, other than maybe Ann and Joe. But to both of their points, the clock is we're behind, so we can't kind of keep punting this to the next meeting. So I would propose, if anyone's of interest, if there's some low-hanging fruit here that we can quickly agree on and push that off to the side, and then determine of these proposed changes, where do we have
Right.
disagreement that needs further discussion that maybe can't happen tonight? At least we can kind of
Yeah, we don't wanna
narrow
draw it
down
out.
that funnel to say, all right, here's the two we need to talk about more, and do it that way in the next meeting, whether it's the next regular meeting, whenever that is, or the one we call specially. The only thing I would add to that is, given the time frame as well, I think the town attorney has enough information here to start thinking about questions, that the town attorney wouldn't have to wait till the final draft. You know, if he makes 3 extra questions that we end up discarding, that's okay. We'll all chip in and pay him the extra couple bucks for those 2 questions. But I think just to keep us on the right timeline, it wouldn't be bad if the first selectman's office kind of said, here's where we're going, get your thinking cap on.
So would you like to run down through it tonight?
I think we could take, and we may do this for an hour and realize we got nothing done, but I don't think that would be.
That's encouraging.
Yeah. But I think some of these are,
If somebody has a concern, they should voice it now.
yeah.
So can we have Betsy, do we have the red line proposed changes?
Is it easier to start with this?
Yeah, this is fine. This is fine.
And then if we have a problem, we can go into the charter
Right.
and realize what it really means?
Yeah, this is
Oh,
fine.
here they are.
This-
Okay,
yeah,
okay.
This is
Proposed
fine.
changes.
Yep.
It's right there.
Betsy's quick with this screen.
Wow.
I'm gonna start the ball rolling. How's that?
So let's start with the first one, a change of term for first selectman from 2 to 4 years. Remaining members of the Board of Selectmen will continue to have 2-year terms. Any concerns with this?
I was thinking about this, and if the first selectman's gonna go to 4 years, I think the remaining selectmen should go to 4 years as well. In my opinion. I thought about it a lot and said, I know there's a lot of boards and commissions that do have the, rotating terms, but I think it should go all the way, if you're gonna go 4 years, go 4 years. Then you have your team together, whether it be Democrat or Republican.
If I may, I'm sorry.
Yes, sir.
I understand that point of view. I think I would respectfully disagree with that one. I think the upside to this version of it is 2 things. One, I think if we made everything 4 years and we put this on a ballot, it fails miserably, so we're just wasting our time. But if we do it under this way, where first selectman X is in there for 4 years, since Connecticut doesn't have a recall process, so if we get, not you, but the next first selectman, whoever that person may be, We vote them in, and maybe in their second term, we realize that something's happening here. And if we've given them 4 years now, and we got to live for that for another 3, by having the 2-year terms for the rest of the Board of Selectmen, you offer the voters a correction. So the first selectman's heading in, is losing popularity, has taken the town in a direction that maybe now the entire voting public does not like. In that mid-year off-cycle election, they could put in a different Board of Selectmen as a check on the first selectman. So I'm the next first selectman, and I'm terrible. The voters could go, at the next election, I'm not running, because I have a 4-year term, and bring in a Democrat majority board to put handcuffs on me, because I'm wrecking everything. So that's kind of how I see this version of government.
When you explain it like that, it's like a game. I don't like that.
Well, it's not really a game. It's giving the public a chance.
That's the way, that's
It's
the
a
way I
circuit
feel about
breaker,
it.
is how I would look at it, yes. We made that bad decision. We don't have to live with it for 4 years. We don't have to live with it for 2, and then it recorrects
But if you're
itself.
so worried about it and you have to make a correction by putting handcuffs on that selectman, by first selectman, then why change it at all?
Maybe we shouldn't.
Right. I mean, if you're gonna,
That's what
if
we were
we're
talking
gonna
about.
play a game like that, then why even bother changing?
I think the upside to the 4-year first selectman, and this could be viewed as a game too, is an argument could be made that in election years, politicians, not us, I mean bad politicians, might not make the tough decisions that a municipality needs in an election year because they don't want to anger somebody. So in a 2-year cycle, if you're the chief elected officer, you're governing for like 10 months of your term before you're up in re-election again. So, you know, in term 4, 5, 6, 7, maybe that's easier. But if you're the first term, second term, first selectman, mayor, whatever, and you're more worried about your vote total than maybe the best interests of a town, 2 years can be tough.
I know we had this long discussion
Yeah.
in charter revision. But just thinking about it,
I agree with Jason. It's you know, being the first selectman, you really have to think as a leader whether you're going to bring something out that could be considered controversial or and you're afraid to bring it out. You don't want to bring stuff out, but you are, my opinion, and for me, is the people ask me to lead. So I'm going to try to do what was expected of me. But again, the timing sometimes, when you bring something out to discuss and go over and what should we do and how should we do it, politically can be conceived as this is what you want, and it's like, no, we're saying we should consider it and discuss it. But it does really make a first selectman concerned about the timing. And a selectman, the timing you shouldn't be concerned about. And I agree, the board, the circuit breaker is if it's going off the rails because the individual is not doing what the people really think is right, you're right, you can change the composition of the board. And the selectman has, you know, I only have 1 vote. I mean, so you have, you know, 5 others that can say, this is not the direction we're gonna go. So it does prohibit progress. I have to say that.
Our commission, in contemplating this, had the rogue for selectmen, which was a title we used. The idea being that if you had somebody who went off the rails, you'd have the 2-year selectman terms to correct that individual. And we heard from various people about the issues that in an election year, things slow down here at Town Hall quite a bit. No offense, right? It's just the reality of the way it works.
I mean,
So that was the compromise. Also, all 4-year terms failed at the last charter revision. So this was a compromise, if you will. Anyway.
And I think most municipalities are four-year term?
I think it varies quite a bit.
Okay, I don't know.
Yeah,
It does vary.
Yeah, it varies quite a bit from town to town. I'm not sure anybody has this exactly. I thought Waterbury did, but I couldn't.
That's where I stole it from. We did this in Waterbury about 6 years
And
ago.
the vote on this, to put this forward, was unanimous?
I don't remember a lot of opposition to this one. I can check the minutes, but.
But it
Yeah,
was pretty much.
Yeah, it might not have been unanimous, but it was overwhelming.
Yeah, it was, there wasn't a lot of, the next one, not so much.
I do know Mike Carrington stopped my office, and he said he had brought this up. He was in favor of it.
Yeah, it was, a lot of the votes went, I could look them up.
It wasn't one side or the other?
No.
So just remember too that, for clarification here, this charter does not cover this next election.
Correct.
No, it does not.
So
It's-
just know that.
It's effective January 1st, 2026, but because the next election after that is November 2027, that's when this would kick in.
Correct. Unless I hear a motion, I'm okay with this.
I'm okay with it.
Okay. Separation of the election of first selectman and board of selectmen, remove language that permitted the unsuccessful candidate for first selectman to bump a board of selectmen candidate.
The only thing I would add here, and I don't mean to step on your toes, Joe, is we didn't really remove any language. What we did was we added language that disallowed the unsuccessful candidate for first selectman to bump a candidate for first selectman. And actually, in the draft that we're looking at, we accidentally omitted a line that actually does that. So I believe even if we love every one of these bullets, we're going to have to send back a change to kind of reflect what I think the Charter Revision Commission meant to
Yeah,
send.
that was an edit mistake, so
Yeah.
on the final draft, it was one line to quantify that votes cast for the
Yeah,
unsuccessful.
I got the line right here if you
Yeah.
want, Joe.
Yeah.
So at the end of that section, there's one more sentence added in, section 301 under composition that says, quote, "The votes cast for the unsuccessful candidate for first selectman shall not be counted as votes for any other seat on the board," end quote. And the reason for that is because if there's any ambiguity or no language at all, obviously we refer back to state statute. In state statute, which was written in 1804 or whatever, allows for that when boards of selectmen were different, three-person boards, and they weren't the boards of selectmen you generally see today. So the thought of that bullet is correct, but it was more added language, or tried to, rather than removed language.
I think this makes sense. I think they're entirely different jobs. I think one is running for an executive position that is an actual employment role, and then the other is pretty much a volunteer position. I think they're entirely different. And maybe back in the day, they were in entirely different positions where somebody, would come in as first selectman and it wasn't a full-time job and they still managed the farm. Little jab. But I think it just makes sense because I just don't think they're the same job.
This is historic, because when you had a board of selectmen, the person who got the highest count of votes became the first selectman.
Right.
Hence the term.
Right.
And it's really evolved into a full-time job, and that's this distinction. This vote, if you're curious, was 6-3. So there was a dissension, some dissension about that. It failed at the prior charter revision, this very question. So I don't know what'll happen if it's put out as a separate question. It could fail again. People will let us know if it goes forward.
Yep, and this is definitely something that I'm opposed to. And I've expressed that in past Board of Selectmen meetings. I think if the people are gonna vote for somebody, the amount of votes that are cast, the number, that person should get in as the selectman.
Jason, I have a question. In Waterbury, somebody runs for mayor.
Speak into the mic.
Apologies. Somebody runs for mayor. Is there any potential that then they become a selectman or an alderman?
No, but different language in rule, just like if, and I don't mean to use the example, but Tim. So that would be more akin, like Tim loses a first selectman race and somehow ends up on Board of Finance. The Board of Aldermen and the mayor are two totally different governing bodies where we're
Right, understood.
kind of a
That's different.
quasi-group.
Yeah.
So there would be no mechanism for the losing, in any town, for the losing mayoral candidate to go to a town council, board, Board of Aldermen, any of those those things, because they're two totally different bodies.
Understood. It's kind of how I see it in my head. I get it.
And Joe made a good point.
All of us.
When we're talking about these bullets, some of these, the intent of the Charter Revision Commission is to gang up as one question, and others are standalone questions. So these first two are standalone questions. They have weight, they have importance, they have actions where things like allow someone to do an AHC transfer versus a check. That's kind of like technical or housekeeping changes, and those would be ganged up in what we were calling the omnibus question. But Joe made a good point that these two would be, in our minds, on the Charter Revision Commission, and I would imagine on the Board of Selectmen, standalone questions.
I would be in favor of the standalone, let the voters determine whether it should be a standalone question, the second one, on the referendum, or
Makes sense.
My thought on this is I was never in favor of this. If you lost the first selectman, you were able to have a second chance. I think if you run for that position and you have a vision and you want to commit to that position, that's the position you run for, and that's the vote you get. Because you have the selectmen that work hard, knocking doors, whatever they do, and they should have that chance if they won those votes. It's just my opinion. If you run for first selectman, that's the position you should get.
so I think this should be standalone question.
Yeah.
I don't hear anybody, I mean, our personal opinions, we'll let the voters decide. Unification of Planning and Zoning Commission into a single commission, I have to say, heard a lot of people, and I think I'd have to be against that. I don't
Got
know.
a lot of feedback on that.
I'm the same on that. It was interesting to hear everyone speak at that hearing, and I'm now for the separation of those two commissions, to keep
So
them separate.
I think we should probably take that as a motion.
This one might be the first one well, maybe we don't want to talk about it. Let me give my 2 cents, and then maybe
Yeah.
we discard this. I was one of the proponents of this at the Charter Revision level, mostly because I was on planning, and I don't want this to come off as if everyone's not working as hard as they can. But there were too many times where I would see applicant X come forward and say, I got this great plan, I just agreed to this lease, and, I've talked to the people in town, and I've been told that I should be open in 30 days, and I already bought some inventory, here's the plan, let me know about it. And probably rightly, we're like, all right, so yes, you can't do that. Have you checked with zoning? No, zoning said to come here. Okay, well, no, you need to do zoning first. All right, so next month I go over to zoning, or 2 weeks later I go to zoning. Zoning says, all right, I see what you said there, go back to planning. They come back to planning. It's like, all right, so I see what you're doing here, and I know what zoning told you, but, before you came here, you should have gone to the health district. You go to the health district? Well, no, they told you to come here. Okay. Punted back. So the guy who is now 3 months into his lease, and sold zilch for whatever he's trying to sell, is frustrated. Is that every example? Certainly not. Some people come in, they sail through, everything works out fine. But there's too many of those people that bothered me. More to the fact is, when you talk to all the people in the kind of small business world, there's more of those than even I understood, where if I'm opening a small business and I'm looking here in maybe Newtown or Oxford, there's a certain reputation that some towns are easier to get going in than others. And Southbury at the time when I was on planning wasn't necessarily leading the pack as ease to get started. To our credit, Jordan has done a pretty nice job of mainlining some of that stuff in both commissions, have given him a little more power to make administrative decisions. And I haven't been on there now in a couple years. So it might be better, but that was where I was coming from, and I think a lot of the people that are proponents of this were that, in Rich and a lot of the guys last week made a lot, and Nancy Clark made a lot of sense about the commitment it is to any of these land use boards, the extra classes you got to take, because I remember having to do them, and, they would track me down and be like, you still owe a half hour in CE, go watch this webinar, and it is a lot. I didn't necessarily buy the argument that by taking, two boards and jamming them together, you would lose anything. I think you'd probably keep planning institutional knowledge and zoning institutional knowledge, and I looked at it as an all-star team, but maybe not. But that was kind of my perspective from it. If the board feels that we've done enough administratively that my fears have been quelled, and we see that things are happening faster, then I could probably go with this. I don't think this is the most important question on the chart at this time. So if it was the will of my fellow selectmen that we dismiss this one, I could live with that, but I wanted to let you know what the thought process was. And the only other thing I would say to this, I was a bit disheartened in the public hearing, especially for Joe, who I've never seen a volunteer do as much as someone did to elicit responses from boards, commissions, the guy waiting for a bus. If Joe saw somebody, he would ask him about the charter. So for some of the comments that, we didn't even know this was happening, I don't understand how that could have been possible. So, I want to defend you a little bit, Joe.
I share, that's always in my office, and my staff will tell you, it's like people will say, I never heard of this, and it's like,
Yeah,
we
it's been out
discussed it
there.
in April.
That was one of the earliest conversations that we had, was,
Yeah.
I think, November of 2024, when we looked at this.
Yes.
And we did speak with Jordan. I know it wasn't written down, but did solicit his opinion. Then there was a lot of email to the various boards and commission chairs, and crickets, twice. So a little disappointing. I understand, it's okay, people suddenly woke up. At the same time, I will add one more comment. Zoning didn't have a quorum in April. That's a problem, because if you got these separate commissions and you have this process that you're following and you can't get work done, that's problematic. And it came down to numbers. We talked about combining also because there were less people required to make those things function, and the business comments. Anyway, whatever you decide to do,
So I have to, Jason knows, I mean, there was times when it was the process of clarification, there's a couple points there. One, because I'm here and I'm in town hall, one, we have a process in place, and I don't know if I dare say this out loud, but we're here to maintain the quality of life of the people of Southbury. So planning does their job, zoning does their job, zoning board of appeals does their job. And though I understand that someone has had a great idea and they have signed a lease, without getting their ducks in a row and understanding the process of what it's going to take to open up the business, they should be talking to someone about, okay, what is the process? So, health department has always got to be discussed if it's ended in any of this. So we've created checkoff sheet pre-planning so that the people know when they come in to have a discussion, I want to open up a bakery. And what's it going to take to do this? And they go through the process so they have a better understanding. And I think that has led to a much more streamlined, most of, I think, what you're hearing now, because I always go upstairs to check, because I guess economic development now falls on me. But I do go upstairs and I check to hear, so what's wrong with this application that, people come to my office and they say, I'm having a problem. Okay, so what's the problem? And most all the time, it's an incomplete application. It's missing this and this, and we've told them they're missing this and this. You need to go get this straightened out. And I understand people wanting to own businesses, but also we need to make sure that that meets our zoning and requirements and regulations. So I would say I am against, at this time, unifying them. I think we're in much better shape than we were prior to this. So I don't know if we need to take a vote on that?
I think we can, at this point, we can probably get consensus. Maybe if we get to the bottom of the bullet point, we would then make one omnibus motion to send back to charter revision. We're okay with bullet 1, 6, 9, 27, and 42, and we are rejecting bullet 3, 8, and 4, or whatever we're gonna do. But I think it can be 1 at the end.
So which one are we gonna, this is bullet number 3?
Yeah, so for the record right now, it looks like there's a general consensus that we're cool with 1 and 2. Bullet 3, we're to ask you to strike, if you want to keep a running note.
Removal of the Public Appeals Board, removal of the Public Appeals Board, change for first selectman duties to include.
Those are two separate items. They somehow got squished together. It should just say removal of Public Appeals Board. It's its own item.
Oh,
Yeah, it existed in the charter, but nowhere
Okay.
in
Yeah.
town
When you
government.
formed HR, that kind of went away.
I would say yes, we would vote to strike number
Bullet 4.
4, bullet 4.
We're striking it from the charter. We're agreeing with the bullet. Yes, yes.
Okay? Yes to 4.
Right, and we'll make that, I'll let Jason make that motion at the end.
I'm supposed to be writing this
Yeah,
down?
yeah, I'm gonna put that on you, just so we're all on the same page. So that would stay in?
Yes.
That would stay in, okay, so we don't have to do, okay, see, you got me good there.
I'm
Change.
I'm writing it down.
Okay, change for first selectman duties to include the word oversight on many tasks to delineate from having to perform tasks personally.
Yeah, if I can go back one bullet. Removal of Public Appeals Board, we believed would be an omnibus question.
Right.
So this would be in that, something along the lines, allow the Board of Selectmen. Sure, but I mean, but that, I don't imagine you would see that as a charter question. That would be in
Right.
the one omnibus question that says, allow the Board of Selectmen to make changes to bring the charter up to, current standards, ordinances, things like that. So, but as we're ticking it on, I just want to let everyone know if that's its own question or not.
Right.
So this next one, change of first selectman duties, is just that. It's changing specific words from like manage to oversee. The thought process behind this is that we spent a lot of time in charter revision creating org charts and understanding how town government works and who reports to who. And frankly, I think we determined in general that the first selectman has too many direct reports. They would report direct to you.
There's a lot of people.
So the idea that you either actively manage the IT, like you're running around and doing, resetting computers and things like that, or you're, managing this, we thought the term either oversee or depending on where it is, was a more apt term for a chief executive as opposed to maybe what like the department manager might be doing. So this again would be in that omnibus question. Would anyone reading the next version of the charter notice the change? No, probably not. But that's, and Joe, fill in the blanks or I'm missing them, but that's what that bullet would be.
I think that more accurately reflects the job today.
Yeah. Okay, yes, I'm sorry, we rolled.
Change
So
annual-
change annual review of strategic plan to a periodic review of strategic plan. We talked about strategy a lot, and we kind of centered around the idea that a strategic plan is something that exists, and it's almost continual. You don't have an annual strategic plan. If you have an annual strategic plan, you never had a strategic plan. You just have lots of plans. So if a strategic plan is more of a 3, 5, 10-year document, changing it annually, we didn't think made a whole lot of sense. So we simply changed the word to periodic, and that allows more flexibility for the town to, in my opinion at least, if you're in the strategic plan and a strategy needs changing, not an implementation or a policy, but a strategy needs planning, that happens something closer to periodically than annually.
We tinkered with things like 5 years or, 1 year, and we just left it a periodic because we couldn't center on a specific time frame. But, the idea of maybe using ad hoc committees to do review of a strategic plan at some periodicity would make sense. Also, the election of the first selectman, let's say it was annual and you just got into office and you weren't prepared to modify a strategic plan.
Yeah.
That was another reason why annual seemed a little onerous. Anyway.
And you really, frankly, if you're new in that office, changing a strategic plan before understanding.
Well, that's right.
It, also, we have a lot of strategic plans. We have a plan of conservation and development. We have a financial, in our budgeting system, a plan, a strategic financial plan. So there's a lot of that already in place. As I have to agree with you on that one. So I think that I'm okay with that.
This would also be, I believe, an
Yeah,
omnibus
this was in the
question.
omnibus question. We didn't think it was that controversial.
And kudos to Betsy for getting rid of the bullets and
Thank
adding
you.
numbers.
So which one are we on now?
7.
Seven.
Add the requirement of an annual preparation of a state of the town report for the electors, which must be in written form.
That's a state statute.
Sorry?
That's a state statute.
Okay. Well, if it's state statute, then that's a state statute.
Well, it wasn't in there before.
Okay.
So 8, add emergency services director. That's a position that obviously exists. And
I had that word wrong. It should say emergency
I was gonna say, is it management director?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we got to clean that up.
That was just added because we had the position in town hall, but it wasn't listed in the charter.
That's all it
So
was.
it's not adding a whole position, just adding the wording. That's all it is.
yeah,
It should say-
very much like the police chief, which
Yep.
happened outside of charge.
That's also a requirement.
No, I'm not sure that
Emergency
it,
management,
well, you have to have a designee, but you don't have to have it listed
Yeah.
as a position necessarily. But we put it in the list of the other positions.
Because someone at the hearing said, why are we adding a new position in town hall?
They were
We're not.
struggling.
We're just adding the wording into the charter.
They were struggling with the word emergency services, which they
Right.
termed was a different position, which,
And this topic took up weeks of conversation too, mostly because I can't stop talking about it. We have a lot of seemingly ad hoc specific positions included in the charter and others that are not. The Charter Revision Commission kind of agreed in principle, but didn't want to act on taking them all out of the charter because there's no need for them to exist. But, they exist in government, they exist in org charts. Having them in charter is weird, but for consistency's sake, this, and police chief will follow, but, that was part of that.
to permit additional officers official to be created by the Board of Selectmen by resolution or by ordinance.
it previously just said resolution. We added ordinance so that it was, you could do it either way, that's all.
Okay.
The job description for the emergency management director, it's EMD communications supervisor. Did you want it to say what it?
Oh, we changed that tonight, didn't we? Joe, how'd you not see that coming?
I didn't see it coming.
That's all right, well,
I don't know, so I
That's-
just wanted to bring it up as
Okay.
something you may want to consider.
yeah, not tonight.
It says or equivalent. In the charter, it says emergency, well, it was going to say emergency management director or equivalent. That's what's in there.
There's also catch-all language at the end of the list that says something like, and any other position that the Board of Selectmen ever cares to
Yeah,
create. So there's,
no offense, but that list is tough because most towns put it in and then they have definitions for all the positions. And then other towns just don't list them at all, and we list them, but we don't define them. It's just the way it is.
All right, change Historic District Commission number 2 membership composition to match Historic District Commission number 1 membership composition.
You want an
Okay, well, I'm
explanation? So, I don't know, it was historic. No, essentially, Historic District 2, whenever it was formulated, insisted that it have 2 members that lived in the district, whereas Historic District 1 only required 1 member to live in the district. As it's become more challenging to get enough people to volunteer, it's been harder to fill all the positions. Also, when I went to those commissions, they were talking about combining, then they backed off and said, well, we should at least have consistent membership. So if you don't have enough people in the district to want to do it, you can get people from outside the district to do it. That's what this is about. Anyway, they were in on it.
And I'm sorry, I'm late on this, but 8, 9, and 10 are all omnibus questions.
Yep.
Removal of the Strategic Planning Commission. This, like I said, we talked about strategy a lot. This was kind of, and I'd invite Joe and Ann both to fix my memory, was kind of a conversation about, one, its own little charter, like what does strategic plan do? Is it best served as a permanent committee or commission within the town? If we need strategy done on specific things, is it better to create an ad hoc or a task force? Over the last several months, we started this a year ago, its quorums were tough. It kind of had lost its way, not to anyone's fault, not that it was, it just wasn't, I don't think, working as originally intended. So after much conversation, the commission decided that, we think there's a mechanism within town government to fulfill the role of what this commission should do without it necessarily having to be a permanent commission within the town. And I don't remember what the vote on this was, but at the end of the day, we thought, we could probably do it a better way.
Where's your button on?
Apologies. Why we had a planning commission and then a separate strategic planning commission, and they seem to be separate. And I was curious about that. And I think this just makes sense that a committee could exist to support the planning commission, and that it need not be its own separate thing.
And it, again, from my time on planning, sometimes, we would be doing what we were doing, and then I would reading the voices that strategic plan was having a meeting, kind of doing the same thing as us. I'm like, well, why are we duplicating efforts? And now that, affordable housing was a good example of that, where we would have competing meetings on the same night, and it just was confusing, I think, and I don't think it was fulfilling whatever its role was. So it kind of gets back to the idea that it's an important process and an important facet of our town government, but maybe shorter, more focused ad hoc committees, or like I said, task force might lead to better strategery.
I think that will encourage them to be, instead of two separate things, really start to work together. And I think that makes sense. And I think you'll, again, get back to only have so many volunteers that are passionate about these things, and having those people that are passionate all swimming in the same direction, I think is going to be helpful.
All right, number 12.
And before we get too far away, this was created as an omnibus question, so we assumed the removal of it would be part of the omnibus question as well.
This was added to the charter because it's been an EMS, Medical Services Committee has been active for a very long time, and it's never been in the charter. So we figured if there was everything else that was listed, this should be listed as well.
It was created by ordinance in 2020.
Right, and it's
and
never
we
been
were
put in the charter.
We were codifying it. and putting
So
it in the
as
charter.
we added the emergency management director, this was just adding that as well because every other
It
committee
exists.
commission is in there, that we thought it was appropriate.
So this exists by ordinance?
Yes.
Yes, it does, yeah. But again, most of the time, if you look in the past, they would get put in the charter
Mm-hmm.
eventually.
No, well, 13, for those of you at home who maybe can't see the screen, is added new independent police department and clarified text for the public safety sections to reference statute of the state of Connecticut. So, yeah, so since the last charter was revised, for those of you who may not know, we did create an independent police force. So this is now just bringing charter language to reflect that versus the old methodology. 14, slightly adjusted the Board of Finance duties to reorder for budget consideration timelines and the meetings/hearings associated with it. Joe, why don't you walk us through the slightly adjusted?
Yeah, so basically it moved the public hearing to be earlier. So this comes to that whole occurrence with the Board of Finance where some things were decided and it was after their public hearing about the budget. So this moves it around a little bit and changes that up so that get more input. It's a very subtle adjustment in section 702 to reorder some things.
So I know this is a reaction to the elimination of funding of a position. I am concerned that something that has worked so long, and I'm not saying I'm against this, I'm saying something has worked and served Southbury for so long, and having been through 10 years of this budget process without having any issue, and also because a lot of times a public hearing, honestly, sometimes a public hearing, nobody shows up.
Again, if the timing of that whole, the episode where the Board of Selectmen had submitted a budget and then it kind of went south because of circumstance, right? The timing of that circumstance change is what would hit this. We didn't see this as risky because it's an adjustment that just moves the public hearing around a little bit.
And Jeff, yeah, it's not risky. It's the Board of Selectmen approved the budget, or we get the budget, we approve it. It goes to the Board of Finance. Unfortunately, this year they had very big decisions to make and they cut a lot of money. It wasn't one position. It was they cut a lot of money. So then they had a hearing, then they cut all that money after the hearing. This is eliminating that. Selectmen, Board of Finance, hearing, so people can voice their opinion. I think the problem was the citizens couldn't voice their opinion after so many cuts were made. It doesn't come back to the Board of Selectmen.
Okay.
It just moves around the hearing from one spot to the next.
Yeah.
It just switches it around so people have a voice. That's all it is.
So the Board of Selectmen would
Vote.
vote and go to the Board of
Yeah,
Finance.
they would decide.
And they would then do a public hearing. They would do the
No,
public.
they would decide on what their cuts were and then go to public hearing. Now it's, we decide, public hearing, Board of Finance, and then the public has nothing to say. They can cut whatever they want. This eliminates that, so
Okay.
that people have more
Okay.
voice.
I understand the
Am I
process. Okay.
correct, Jason?
Yeah, it's essentially just shifting things in the calendar. And correct me if I'm wrong, you kind of bounced this off some, either John Michaels or some other Board of Finance
Yeah,
folks,
John
and they were like,
Michaels
sure, whatever.
had some input on this, and we had some input from others. Sorry? I didn't think he weighed in on that particular step. I thought this was Mr. Sell who gave us some language.
And
But John
Riley,
Michaels.
John Riley was on charter.
This is a Board of
Riley.
Finance issue, not a CFO issue.
Yeah,
But that's
no.
okay. A CFO just deals
Yeah.
with the budget as presented to him.
Yeah,
This-
it's not a big adjustment, but, no. No. To hear more from the public, that's really what it comes down to, or at
Okay.
a certain point in the
I
process.
understand it.
That was going to be in that larger
Yeah.
question. Right. 15, this is,
This was the biggest
To
thing
allow
Charter Revision tackled in our year
ACH.
and a half on the commission.
yeah. This is, yeah, the physical checks stuff really needs to change. Right.
It still requires two signatures.
It says, it's not signature, we use it as authorization, I think is
Yeah, the
term we use.
authorization.
We had to tinker with some of that language to make sure that there was, and the legal counsel may say, oh, well, that's fine or not, we'll see. But we had a lawyer on the committee who spoke about that, right?
So what we did run into was a company that said, we don't accept checks. It's wire transfer
Yeah,
or
that's gonna
nothing.
become more common.
And I think it's gonna become more common.
Right.
And we're getting into the modern age where people do ACHs and electronic payments.
But there is still, you also have to be careful about, and we have to be careful about the checks because there can be fraud or payments that you're not supposed to be making. But there's checks and balances, same thing with this. But
Yep.
yes, that's what it's coming to.
The only thing I would add here, and I think I added, or I noted it there, is sometimes, and I think we saw it with our little open burning tonight, the more language we put on, the more restrictive we make it, and it's hurtful for tomorrow. Like when they put in, we're gonna write a check, no one said, well, we're always gonna have checks. So there was some discussion, do we remove any language for the method at all and simply say the town can pay bills if authorized? And then 270 years from now, when we're paying with our thoughts or whatever, we wouldn't have to go back in and change a charter. So that's the only kind of thing with language like this, so now we're saying specifically electronic payments or ACH or what have you. Is Charter Revision in 25 years gonna have to say something else?
Well, it says methods of payment of approved claims shall be signed/authorized by first selectman, et cetera, et cetera. So it doesn't really specify.
Oh, so we did strike it
We
out to
did
just-
strike that. We
okay.
made it generic. So if a new scheme comes along that's beyond electronic, it should be okay. But it does say it says signed, authorized and check and balance.
Hey, back in my day, I never thought you could talk over a telephone, so.
Yeah.
We're paying in buckskins and things like that.
16, okay. This was a construct that instead of having some hard numbers in here for things like borrowing, we made it percentages of the town budget so that we won't have to go and modify this as inflation increases over time. I cite the example of the federal government and the alternative minimum tax, which they didn't index for inflation, which continues to catch people. Anyway, the bottom line is we just tinkered, instead of putting hard numbers in, we said, a percentage of the budget, so. It says, for example, an aggregate amount of 1% of the previous year's municipal budget. So that's like,
Total municipal.
that's a borrowing number. And it calculates out just about the same as what was in there before.
Understood.
Where am I?
Increase.
This was, these are sort of the discretionary payments that folks in your organization can make to outside groups. So you need $500 to go to, I don't know.
Ladies Guild.
Yeah, Ladies Guild or something like that. So we increased this number. This is a hard number. There were instances where some people were running up against this limit. We felt, the commission felt to increase it. It was, I don't believe that was unanimous, but it was certainly a majority.
Yeah, Joe doesn't like the Ladies Guild, so he said no.
One of the examples was the EDC was doing a Arts and Eats with the Ladies Guild, and it was $500. It's been $500 forever, and that was the limit. Now I think it's gone up to $650. Now you can't do the event because you don't have, it's private organization, nonprofit. You only can do the $650. So how would you get the other $150? It's just, we thought it was coming into those modern times, increasing that limit.
Yeah, 500 existed for a while.
A long time.
And now I think 1,000 will list for a while.
Right.
So,
There was a plaque mentioned for the 350th, something like that. There were several examples where something that we didn't think was too onerous, and yet, they ran up against this limit, which means you have to vote on it, so.
I'm not sure 500 will get you a cup of coffee.
Well,
We're in trouble if that's the case.
I'd cite that the
This was
ethics code,
$360, by the way.
the ethics code had a $10 gift at one point in time, and we increased it to $25 because you couldn't, buy a pack of beer for $10 or whatever, so
Yeah,
I remember
yeah.
these numbers will, what's a gift, right? Anyway.
Okay.
Keep going. 19, this is the tax collector. She came across this, the notion of waiving the tax bills or tax payments if they're less than $5. It just costs more than $5 to process these things. And she's sending out bills for $1 or $3 or $2. It's kind of crazy. And you're paying for postage every which way it goes. It makes a lot of sense to let her have that discretion. And there's a state rule that lets this happen. So that was omnibus. 20 is the grants. This is a problem from the last charter where the grant language was not correctly written, and you couldn't even apply for a grant without prior approval. Now you can apply, and
Right, wasn't this one?
Well, it was put the intent was so that the grant was fully vetted. The problem was we ran into a number of grants where we had a deadline that had to be met, and you're technically in violation of the charter because you applied for it.
right.
It really needs, the acceptance of the grant has to be approved. But there's grants that come out, time-wise, you just cannot apply for them. You can't get everything done and approved in time to apply for it. And you're also applying for grants that you may not get. So now you're going through all this time with the Board of Finance, Board of Selectmen, all this stuff. And you apply and you get, it's like, let's apply, let's see what, and then we also know for sure, and that gives you time to go over it, so.
So it reads now, any grants that are in excess of $10,000 must be accepted by a majority vote of the board, accepted by the Board of Finance and Board of Selectmen. Applications for grants may be submitted by any group, agency, or individual. Applications can occur, approval is done, above 10,000.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we probably should address too that $800,000 grant that we got for New Wheeler Road, because I don't believe that the Board of Selectmen ever
That
really
did,
approved that.
yes,
Okay. well,
completely approved.
Can you tell me where the minutes are, because I've been asking for months?
Okay.
Next, do I go to the next item? Or is there
Just real quick, a minute ago, I thought we had 2 number 20s, and I thought it was an... We didn't delete something, though? Okay, thank you.
20, this is the finance ordinance alternative. The notion behind this is to allow modification to the finance process in between charter revisions, if approved. One of the comments from John Michaels and others is that if we in the Charter Commission didn't feel that comfortable with making major changes to the whole budget process for this town. It would be a huge amount of research. We decided that we're not the experts at that, but we created a mechanism by which it can be done by ordinance in between charter revisions if this board decides to do that. So it limits it to sections 701, 702, and hang on, let me check the numbers. 702, 703, and 704, and says that those sections could be modified by ordinance if this passes.
So I'm a little concerned about this.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I say that is, as you just said, let's just say there's a new Board of Selectmen, and there has been where everybody was new, and we think we all know what we know. And we decide, the board decides to streamline this and change it. This has been working for a long time this way. I'm concerned that what makes, I hate to say this, well, what makes us an expert on the budget process here. I mean, honestly, we have more consistency on the Board of Finance than the Board of Selectmen.
No, well, with the advice of the Board of Finance is what this says in the ordinance alternative. So the thing is that
Advice or approval?
it originally said approval, we settled on advice.
Advice means nothing.
Yeah, and in any case, the reason for doing this was to allow for those things to be changed in between charters, and also because I think that there could be a separate whole research project just to do this correctly. That the charter group was not comfortable doing. A lot of other charters that we looked at didn't even have this level of definition about the budget process. We're one of the few that have this detailed, blow by blow, here's what you do for your budget and your budget process. It was surprising, but most of them do it by other means.
Most municipalities do not carry, though we did just borrow 8.5 million.
Mm-hmm.
Most municipalities don't have the limit, carry a much larger debt load. So to compare, in my opinion, to compare Southbury with other municipalities, just because we may be doing it right.
You mean by
because
having it in the charter?
By doing our budget process versus the whims of the, I dare say, the political whims of politicians in other towns that are not doing it correctly, has led to us being extremely financially stable. I would say this would be upon approval of the Board of Finance.
Well, that's a fair comment. If you that language, that particular word in this particular section, we went back and forth on. If there's a feeling in this
Joe.
group, yeah.
I had a problem with this, that you're doing all this work in the charter, and Joe, I've said this in the Charter Revision Committee. You're doing all this work in the Charter Revision, you're working with everybody, but this actually supersedes it by saying, we're gonna throw out the charter and we're gonna do an ordinance. You could do this with every single item in the,
That's why it's constrained to which sections.
no, I understand that,
It
but,
doesn't affect borrowing.
but you can put it in every section, and that means that gets thrown out, and let's just write an ordinance.
I
That's-
think it
I'm not a
allowed
fan.
the streamlining to occur if, again, this has to pass muster with the voters, right? And if it's allowed on the ballot. And the idea was to let them decide if this kind of streamlining tool would be available. Ordinances are not simplistic. I mean, as you saw tonight, that the fire ordinance got a lot of feedback, right? And I would imagine a budget ordinance would get even more feedback.
But what I'm saying is
yeah.
that if you do this with every section, say down the road, every charter revision does this with every section, I'm not saying it's gonna happen.
Yeah.
That means that you can throw out the charter and just throw in a little ordinance and it's all changed.
Well, I would argue then
That's-
you'll never see a substantive change to the budget process in this charter.
But this could. in
This could, but
situation.
my point is, if you don't even allow this to occur or get voted on, all you'll see these minor adjustments to the budget process where they may be, and they may be good and it may be bad.
Mhm.
Because if you look back at the charters back to 1975, much of that budget process all goes that far back.
Joe, correct my memory if you could.
Yeah.
John Michaels, if not, was the author of this.
His terminology is, we should take a grenade to the sections 702, 703,
Yeah, so
and 704.
I don't want it to be misconstrued that
No.
we're trying to steal the authority from the Board of Finance. This
No.
sort of originated over there.
Right.
I'm of two minds on this one. And I think there might be some recency bias with the last budget, that more people are demanding changes and that probably don't need to be made. But when I looked at the charter, in every decision, I tried to remove any human beings. You're not the first selectman, John's not the Board of Finance chair, none of us exist. It's just a blank slate. And what would that world want? I think in our little world of Southbury, right, wrong, or indifferent, the voters think we're in charge. What they learned this time around, at least in budgetary functions, is not so much. So I think that either enlightened and made people happy or angered some people because they thought well, our budget should have passed because we outranked them or whatever, which is not the case in our world. So there could be an argument that if the voters think it should be our decision, that it should be, and this ordinance could get us to that world, depending on however the ordinance was written. I don't know if I agree with that or not. The one thing that I had trouble with, and I heard it a lot, was by keeping it in the Board of Finance, we take politics out of it. They're on the same ballot we are. I don't understand this world where the same voters who vote us on and ZBA and planning also vote on the Board of Finance. So I think correctly in the world we live in, Jeff's right, it has been more stable. It has kind of been above the fray. I wouldn't disagree with that. But in that blank canvas world, you could have a bunch of kooks on the Board of Finance too that have all the authority. So that's how I became of kind of two minds. I don't know what the right answer is. I think it fails on the ballot anyway. But I thought it was interesting, at least, that Mr. Michaels was looking to, maybe the next generation of, maybe this ain't the right way to do it. And I think Joe 100% correctly understood that it ain't the Charter Revision Commission's job to figure it out. Currently exists isn't perfect, and I don't think anyone thinks it is. What could a better alternative be? And maybe the next charter revision, after feedback from other people, put that in there. But I think this is a fascinating case. I wish it came to us not kind of at the 11th hour, earlier in the process, because I think there's valuable things to think about here. But I 100% understand the hesitancy about enacting it.
If something, even you say if another charter revision commission could do, this is a lot of specialty work.
No, I'm saying if we start the Board of Finance, the Board of Selectmen, the Department of Finance, experts on the outside, create a path that comes pre-baked.
I think you're modifying this whole process for our budget process, but it can't be done. And another charter revision commission could refuse to do it.
Certainly.
And I don't, which this was a way, again, by ordinance. So an ordinance, again, not completely simple, takes a little effort.
And it could never be, we could add this into the charter,
And then
no one
never
ever
get
does
invoked.
anything with it ever.
It
And
could
we
never
march
get
along
invoked.
as
It's
we
an
always
option.
have.
That's all it is. And like Jason said, maybe the public says, no, that's not transparent enough. I don't like it. I like it baked in the charter, and it gets voted down. But we thought there was a rationale for putting it on the ballot.
So part of my concern is we're down in the referendum
Yeah, and I think also this
because
one's
of this.
complicated to explain. I think there's,
Is this omnibus question?
No,
This would be a
No.
standalone
No.
question.
Standalone.
yeah.
So if that was a standalone question, then,
Right after this, maybe we could pop up the list of proposed questions I had. It was one of the
Well, okay,
documents.
so
Let's finish this, and then I'll show you what we had proposed.
so
for those.
this is going to be a standalone question.
That was the plan. Yeah.
Okay. Then we can go on. We'll take a look at that.
This was a comment from folks in town hall that when you hold that make it may have instead of a shall have
I think that
public
might be our quickest
annual
meeting.
town.
What's that?
I think it's generally our quickest meeting one of the quickest meetings of the year is the.
Well, it's
town-
not really a meeting. It's a technical meeting, but there's nobody there.
Right, nobody comes. It
I mean,
doesn't make
it's-
sense.
I mean, it's kind of a joke. And the staff is like, okay, someone's got to go.
Right,
Someone,
right.
we have, and there's generally just off the staff. And it's like, okay, open it, close it, and
This
we go
came
home.
from office staff, and we
For-
looked at it, and I couldn't find it a requirement in the state statutes.
But I think the optional is great. Let's say the Board of Selectmen said, hey, we want we want to have an annual town meeting to come up, and then maybe that will draw people in to listen because,
It's important enough to have one.
yeah, the optional.
Right.
And I just wanted to confirm as the new guy, this annual town meeting we're talking about is or is not the meeting that kind of opens, that starts the budget process and then closes after the referendum? That's a different meeting. Okay.
This just sets the hours for voting, and it says it's a discussion of the budget, but that does not happen.
Right, we gavel in, we say this is the moderator for it, and we leave.
That's it, we say the voting hours are 6 to 8, that's it.
And to confirm, there's no statutory language that says this has to exist.
Not that I could find.
I think this is outdated language because now we have other forms of communication, utilize time effectively, but I think this is just outdated
I mean, back in the day, I'm sure people went to the town meeting.
to find out what voting hours were instead of the town website.
So I didn't sense that that was controversial. Is
No.
that fair?
No,
Okay.
that's,
So this was the charter group came up with these major topics that we thought could be questions. The first selectman term modification, planning and zoning combination, the unsuccessful candidate for first selectman does not get a seat at the Board of Selectmen. These are their own questions. Finance ordinance alternative.
If I may, before we,
So there is no second, so there is no motion.
okay.
well, we still might get, do you want to rescind your motion, then we'll put some meat on it?
Well, technically, why don't you rescind the motion?
I rescind the motion.
Because we never decided what was happening with 20. We talked about it and then didn't do anything with it. So if we go back to 20, which is this ordinance alternative.
Right.
There didn't seem to be necessarily consensus on this, so I just didn't know what column to put 20 in.
I would like to see that as a separate question, and I say that because I'm afraid if it's too controversial, not as a separate question, that the charter may not pass.
Let's look at the suggested list again.
Yeah, so 20 here, I think, is
Thank you.
4.
Yeah.
Finance ordinance alternative, chapter 7 optimization mechanism.
So that is a separate question.
Yes,
Okay.
under the World Charter Revision imagines.
Okay.
And these were suggestions. If you guys felt that something in the omnibus required its own question, this was just our suggested list.
I think we've already hashed that out.
All right, so the group's okay with 20 as long as it's its own question?
Yes,
Yeah.
I am.
I have a silly question. When this goes to a vote, the entire charter fails? Like, let's say, okay, that's what I want to make sure of. So that
No,
one
one can
question.
say, make everything in the omnibus question and say the Board of Selectmen can do stuff.
Forget about it.
Then everything would fail if it failed. But
So-
that's the logic of breaking things out.
Just a comment. So the omnibus has minor modifications to Chapter 7, the ACH check question, some of the borrowing limit things, the taxation. Some of those things in Chapter 7 would have been covered under the finance ordinance alternative as a possibility, right? But we made them anyway to the charter so that if the omnibus passes and the finance ordinance alternative doesn't, you still have some key things that are in your budget process that are fixed. So we thought about what happens if some of these questions pass and some of these questions don't.
We're all cool on 20? Okay, so I think the motion should be to return to the Charter Revision Commission their draft proposal of the charter, approving items 1, 2 with the edit adding in the language that was missing, 4, 5, 6, 8 amending the correct title of Emergency Management Director, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, and 21, and striking item number 3, the combination of Planning and Zoning Commission.
That's quite a motion.
Oh.
Do I have a second on that? Thank you, Tim. I know, there's a lot of thought process going on there's a lot. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Is anyone opposed? And that carries. Joe, when you get that,
Yep.
work with Jason.
Sure.
Don't
Get
work with
that
me.
together, get that to me as
Well-
soon, Monday?
What do you want me exactly to get to you to make sure I'm on the same page? here?
Well, I want to get that final up to, again, I want to get it up to the attorney for review.
Okay, but.
Two things have to happen
Two- yeah,
first, and this
well,
may
yeah.
be where you're going. You're
Yes.
gonna have to call the meeting of Charter Revision.
Yes, I am, yeah.
And they're gonna take our recommendations back to them, and they can say, sure, they can say, no, you guys are dummies, we're sending you this back, and then we have to do this again. But the next step is Charter Revision has to take what we just sent them and either agree with it and send us their final, disagree with us and send us their final,
Right.
and then we do this. But you're right.
But you can still send it to me.
Yes, for the questions, so the attorney can start working on it.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you have, between the list of suggested topics plus the charter language that we've already put in place, you can, I would hope that the town attorney already has it, but maybe not. Yeah, he should be starting on it.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're gonna get this all done and get it out to the Charter Commission.
Yeah, I'll work on that.
Okay. When do you think you'll have that?
I'll try to set up either a special meeting, or I think the regular meeting was like early August, so I.
But getting that
I have to do sooner than-
information out to them, you'll have it pretty soon?
Well, we'll call a meeting ASAP. I'll just leave it like that. Because we have a very limited agenda here. We're going to undertake the questions
Okay.
that you're sending back to us, yes or no, and we'll have an answer.
Yeah, I don't expect that meeting to be lengthy.
I wouldn't think so. Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
thank you.
Thank you, it's a lot of work. Thank you.
No new business. First Selectmen's report. We have made significant progress on flood repairs. FEMA money has been coming in. Additional grants were applied for, and the project bids and recommendations for IT work at the library and rebuilding of the tennis courts have been made. To say that recovering from the flood has been a monumental effort is an understatement. I'm very pleased with the town hall staff on their coordinating efforts to move these projects along and think outside the box to keep costs down, saving the town significant money in the process, and the staff is doing that. The town welcomed almost 300 patrons at the town pool grand opening pool party, and almost 1,500 patrons in the first week of pool operation. When you add our summer shark swim team and swim lessons, that's nearly 2,000 swimmers for the first month of summer. You can get information about obtaining a pool passes and hours of operation by going to our Park and Rec website. Economic Development Task Force held their last meeting on July 8th, 2025, and made the following recommendations. Economic Development Task Force members agreed that there is no reason to get an appraisal of the Volpe Rosen property at this time. They also made a recommendation that the Economic Development Commission prepare questions for a public survey on the development of the Volpe Rosen property for commercial use, and made a recommendation that the Economic Development Commission prepare a job description and expectations for the Economic Development Director position. Public Works, the Connecticut Department of Transportation, Connecticut DOT, approved funding for 2 more bridges, reconstruction projects that provides over $1 million in funding to Southbury under the state and local bridge program. Connecticut DOT awarded 15 state local funding for 15 projects, including 2 in Southbury, which is to replace bridge number 130006 Bucks Hill Road over Walnut Hill Brook, $581,100, and replacement of bridge 130029 Munn Road over Walnut Hill Brook, $562,250. I just want to say that part of this is that the state has come to realize that when they award us this money, we get the project done. A lot of times, towns are awarded money and they don't have the money to finish it, they don't have the money, whatever it is. So they are happy to get us going. They seem to be pretty, they want to get this infrastructure fixed. The police was approved to receive a $16,000 grant award to purchase and install ticket printing systems in police vehicles. In other police news, the department is working on completing their Tier 3 accreditation from the State of Connecticut Police Officer Standards and Training Council. I am very pleased with my staff for their diligence in pursuing alternative funding sources to lessen the cost to the town. This ticketing system will allow the officers to do the ticket in the car and it'll fill everything out. They don't have to handwrite, and it'll be a lot safer for them. Pushed by Animal Control Officer Kristen Cedar to have all dogs in Southbury licensed, led to the most dog licensed at 1,170 in the month of June since COVID. Kudos to our Animal Control Officer. Big push to get our dog licenses out there, and the public has responded. On June 13th, Senior Center Director Andrea Corcoran attended the quarterly Western Connecticut Area Agencies on Aging Regional Leadership Breakfast, where our senior center was formally designated as a focal point. Focal points are central places where seniors and/or caregivers can access a variety of services. This concept was developed to simplify access to services for older people. Designation of community focal points decrease fragmentation and duplication of services at the local level. Focal point creates a identifiable place for older people to come together, receive services, and develop skills. Southbury Park and Recreation's first outdoor concert at Settlers Park Gazebo kicked off with the Rakes on July 7th, 2025, and a tremendous success. This new location provides more space to spread out and entertain larger crowds. Don Frustein, a local musician, initiated the idea of building a permanent stage at Town Hall Green. After working with our Park and Recreation Director, Megan Lennon, they felt making improvements to the Settler Park Gazebo would work even better. Ellie Hanna, a singer of the band One Track Mind, and her bandmates jumped on board to help. One Track Mind donated their time and talent to raise money for the gazebo improvements by performing a benefit concert at the Woodbury Brewing Company. In addition to the fundraiser, together with Don, they personally purchased some of the materials and donated their time to make improvements to the gazebo. This is a fitting example of how community and government can come together and make their town an even better place to live. Thank you, Don, Ellie, One Track Mind, town staff, and everyone who worked on this project. Please come out to see One Track Mind perform a free live show at Settlers Park on Monday, July 21st from 6 to 8 p.m. I understand it works quite well. Our land use administrator submitted the following report for today's Board of Selectmen meeting. It came in, just so you know. Hello, esteemed members. This is from Jordan. I hereby provide you an update of the zoning text and zoning map amendments that have been approved by the Zoning Commission in the last month. Section 12 of Plan Development. On May 14th, 2025, Hugh Sullivan, the petitioner, submitted a petition to amend Section 12 of the zoning regulations related to plan developments. I work closely with Mr. Sullivan to assist with the drafting of the updated language in order to increase the flexibility for business owners and developers seeking to incorporate more mixed-use developments on Main Street as well as within other commercial business districts in town. The primary objective of the amendment was to alleviate the restrictions within Section 12 that carried over from the development of Heritage Village. The revised regulations now accommodate mixed-use, residential over retail style developments within commercial business districts. So the petition was submitted on May 14th. Public hearing was held June, I think that's a typo, on the year 24. Zoning text amendment approved at 6/11/25 and codified on June 4th, 25. Also rezoning of IBM on June 11th, 2025. The Southbury Planning Commission, who is a petitioner, submitted a petition to amend both the zoning regulations and zone map for the former IBM campus located at 150 Kettletown Road. The new industrial zone will now allow for a range of light to medium industrial uses, including manufacturing and production lines, warehousing and distribution centers, research and development laboratories, data centers, professional and administrative offices, and accessory uses. Additionally, The site was planned to allow for multiple businesses to occupy the property in an industrial park-style setting. This style of development is designed to maximize the property's potential while delivering the significant long-term value to the town. Industrial park-style development is beneficial due to the requirements that a unified site plan be presented whenever such a development is proposed. Under this unified plan, different industrial occupants would be required to work together to achieve a synergetic development by sharing key infrastructure and site features such as access ways, parking, stormwater management systems, sewage treatment facilities, common areas, and amenities. This type of development would also be required to maintain that all architectural design and building material be in harmony with the overall development. The petition was submitted on 6/11/25, public hearing on 7/9/25, zoning text and zoning map amendments approved on 7/9/25, and to be codified August 1st of 2025. From there, we can start working towards getting some kind of activity up there at that. Can you send it to the selectmen? It just came in, so that's why we read it in to the record, but they'll send it out to the board. All right? Okay, it's getting late. Reports from liaisons. Ann?
Library board did not meet, LUPAC did not meet, EMS committee met 2 days ago Tuesday. We spoke about numbers and regular business, nothing more to report. And that's my report.
Selectman Betty is not here. Selectman O'Neill.
Relations Task Force meets the 23rd next week. The two other ones haven't met since our last meeting.
Selectman Sullivan.
The Board of Ed is enjoying their summer break until they reconvene for the school year.
Selectman Van Stone.
I think the group is updated on the Charter Revision Commission. Senior Commission IT Steering did not meet. Energy Task Force met Tuesday. Most of the discussion revolved around the letter of intent that you had signed over to take a look at that energy project that Chuck was in front of us a couple weeks ago talking about. One other thing that was brought up is that I guess Blake reported to Chuck that they may have found that documentation about closing out the project there. Remember, there was some discussion that a piece of paper had disappeared. Blake thinks he may have found it.
Very good. Do we have a motion to adjourn? All in favor? Aye. And we're adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.